SNF4 is being held online. For best management of the online proceedings, SNF4 is using the Zoom webinar format. With this format, only the speakers have access to camera and a microphone. Participants who want to speak can click the raise hand button when they are called by the moderator. Their video and microphone will be activated. We are disappointed that we cannot see all the hundreds of beautiful people on the screen at the same time. SNF4 has 5 elements, 2 exciting activities today, Friday, the 8th of January, 2021, and 3 deliberations tomorrow, Saturday, the 9th of January, 2021. This evening, we will begin with the launch of recordings of traditional Gambian lullabies, led by Mr. Njog Malik Jeng. This will be followed by an interactive thematic workshop on appreciating and advancing Gambian culture in a changing world, moderated by Professor Pierre Gomez. Tomorrow, we meet again online at 12:30 in the afternoon for a 1 p.m. start. As has become a tradition, tomorrow's proceedings will start with the formal opening statements under the auspices of the President of the Republic of the Gambia. This will be followed by a workshop at 2:30 p.m. on the development review, lessons, actions, and diaspora input, moderated by Dr. Amina Silla, Assistant Professor, Towson University, Maryland. The keynote speaker at this event is Honorable Mambure Njai, the Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs, and Mr. Pa Samba Jau, the Vice Chair, Democratic Union of Gambian Activists, Duga, and co-host for the People by the People show. After a short break following the first workshops, we'll have another interactive session at 4:30 p.m. on Gambian diaspora voting and representation. Actions and Logistics, moderated by no other than Ms. Fatu Mulashi, the young, beautiful presenter at the Gambia Radio and Television Services, GRTS. The keynote speakers are Honorable Sidia Jata, the Chair, the National Assembly Foreign Affairs Select Committee, and Mr. James Jegan Bahum, MSDG Project Advisor. We also have a guest speaker, Honorable Babukar Jallo, the Diaspora member of the 13th Legislature National Assembly of Senegal, representing the Americas and Oceania. An exciting Friday and an interesting Saturday awaits us, dear friends and dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen. All protocols are duly observed. It is now my pleasure to invite Mr. Njog Malik Jeng to lead the launch of the lullaby recordings. Njog, over to you.
Thank you, Nene, for the introduction. Good evening and welcome everyone to the fourth session of this evening's program. On behalf of the MSDG project and Yaram Arts, I have the privilege to officially launch the first collection of recordings of traditional Gambian lullabies. Yaram Arts is one of the strategic partners on the MSDG project, and our role is to promote diaspora development through arts and culture. Since 2017, we have taken particular interest in
of Buljoy Samanene, the rhythmic ditty of Sona Mariama, or the soothing charm of Ayo Nene. Lullabies have sent many a distressed baby and toddler into the quiet comfort of a restful sleep, cuddled in the warm embrace of a loving parent, grandparent, sibling, relative, or communal carer. We note with regret that in recent times, these cultural and artistic artifacts have gradually faded into the recesses of our collective memory, alas, lost to the present generation of Gambian children. In a world of fast-changing globalized culture, it is even more important to hold on to our cultural gems with pride and delight. The MSDG project, in collaboration with Yaram Arts, have commissioned Gambia's oldest national musical ensemble, the Gambia Police Band, and notable Gambian diaspora singers, Amisheri and Kumba Kuyate, to interpret and record a collection of these traditional lullabies. So dear listeners and Gambian families, whether you are in Maryland or Mariamakunda, Slough or Salum, Sicily or Sinchu, Barcelona or Basse, Berlin or Berending, Dar es Salaam or Dasilami, Mother Gambia is calling you. My name is James Jigan Bahum, and on behalf of the MSDG project and Yaram Arts, I invite you to enjoy these timeless musical reminders of the love and fun of Gambian childhood.
Mbanyali wo kori mbalone, nge balone masaye bafale, ayafa munela kaye tulji lebong, tulji kinsengo masaye mbafa wala, nkoni mamfabi mansabemba jola, ni mamfabi mansabemba jola. Mbanyali wo kori mbalone, nge balone masaye bafale, ayafa munela kaye tulji lebong, tulji kinsengo masaye mbafa wala, ni mamfabi mansabemba jola, ni mamfabi mansabemba jola. Banyalingo khana khamulo sumayai, banyalingo khana khamulo sumayai, hamna sayai wante burmo korei, lum koreye mune dafa tur diwam, diure kata burbi momurei sumayai, abumade yute burbi dina fei sumayai. Bumade yute burbi dina fei sumayai, banyalingo khana khamulo sumayai, banyalingo khana khamulo sumayai, hamna sayai wante burmo korei, lum koreye mune dafa tur diwam, diure kata burbi momurei sumayai, abumade yute burbi dina fei sumayai. Bumade yute burbi dina fei sumayai, banyalingo khana khamulo sumayai, banyalingo khana khamulo sumayai, banyalingo khana khamulo sumayai, banyalingo khana khamulo sumayai, hamna sayai wante burmo korei, lum koreye mune dafa tur diwam, diure kata burbi momurei sumayai, wai bumade yute burbi dina fei sumayai, bumade yute burbi dina fei sumayai, man bumade yute burbi dina fei sumayai, bumade yute burbi dina fei sumayai. Batu kujali tamarare wu kujali fenyema, Batu kujali tamarare wo kujali fenyama. Alindanda yiri alindanda wara ali bonyato tida mere ninka no benkilla tida mere ali bonyato tida mere ninka no benkilla tida mere. Batu kujali tamarare wo kujali fenyama. Batu kujali tamarare wo kujali fenyama. Alindanda yiri alindanda wara ali bonyato tida mere ninka no benkilla tida mere ali bonyato tida mere ninka no benkilla tida mere. Batu kujali tamarare wo kujali fenyama. Alindanda yiri alindanda wara ali bonyato tida mere ninka no benkilla tida mere. Nene, na halma nene, nene mungi joy, na halma nene, nene suma nene, nene waru joy, nene suma nene, nene waru joy, ay boy, na halma nene, nene mungi joy, kendoru nene, nene lumu joy, nene suma nene, nene tuti, nene suma nene, nene tuti, nene, nene mungi joy, nene lumu joy, nene warul joy, nene dafa hif, nene suma nene, nene tuti, nene suma nene, nene warul joy, ay boy, na halma nene, nene mungi joy, nene lumu joy, nene warul joy, nene dafa hif, nampalal nene, nene warul joy, nampalal nene, nene warul joy, nampalal nene, nene warul joy, nahalma nene, nene warul joy, nahal suma nene, nene warul joy, nahal sunyu nene, nene warul joy, nene, nene tuti. Nene, na halma nene, nene mungi joy, na halma nene, nene suma nene.
Yes, we can pause. We go back to Malik.
Thank you, Jibril. Beautiful, wonderful. Amiseri, thank you for the beautiful songs, and Kumba Koyate. So indebted to you. Jagan Bahom, oratory as usual, top notch. Quickly, Kumba, perhaps you and Ami, you may want to share, like, reflect on these sort of recordings. Kumba, I will start with you. If you remember when we talked about this recording, when I consulted you, and then you were up for it, but perhaps you may have thought that these were something you haven't done for a while. But then I said, well, we'll give you sort of about 6 numbers that we already got on the script. But as an artist, we kind of allowed you to sort of interpret it. And if you want to draw some inspiration and change this, because these are sort of, there's always sort of different variations to these kind of lullabies. And you said, let me give you a day or 2 to work on it. And I think you've consulted as well with your mom, because I remember another time when I spoke to you when you were rehearsing. Can you kindly, share sort of those sort of rehearsal moments and sort of the consultation you also had with particularly your mom, before we put you in touch with Mahawk to do the recording?
Thank you very much, Njok. Actually, I'm very honored to be part of this activity, and I can see some familiar faces. My long-lost cousin sister, Sona, is here. I can see my professor, Dr. Gomez. Hello to you all, and to all other participants. Actually, yeah, it's right. When you called me, I had to consult my mom because they are some of those custodians to these kind of things. So I thought she would be one of the best people I can contact to get a background information about these lullabies, because I grew up hearing some of these songs, and we all have, I guess. So so the history behind these lullabies is basically, you know, them days we used to have babysitters who would come home and look after the kids, and while their parents would go to the farms and do whatever work they have to do there. And once they come back, these babysitters will have to help them in pounding whatever they brought home, be it corn or rice or millet. So, but while they're away at work, the babysitters will help calm the babies. So these lullabies are a tool to help calm the babies when they're crying or they're aggressive. So you don't need to be an expert singer. You don't need to be an artist to sing these lullabies. These are part of our cultures. You know, like my uncle used to say that every culture starts as a baby, and then it is the people who grow up with the culture make it big and make it something, you know, that everybody learns as they grow up, and then end up maintaining it, and then pass it from generation to generation. And that's how we all come to know about these lullabies. And basically, this is a very good initiative because it will help our kids to know how their parents have been brought up, because those days there was nothing like smartphones for us. This was our source of entertainment, singing around the fireplace, firewood in the night, you know, narrating stories. So all those stories have their songs as well. And then, you know, when the child is crying, the babysitter will sing for the child to calm them down. So the kids will grow up listening to these songs, and it will be part of them, part of their culture, and it's something you can't part with. So when I was doing these recordings in the studio, it reminded me of a lot of things, you know, as during my childhood times. And it brought really nice, beautiful memories back to me. And I'm happy that I'm able to share that with all the kids, all Gambian kids, be it in Gambia or in the diaspora as well. So I'm very happy.
Thank you, Kumba. And the good thing is, like you said, obviously this is going to be in the public domain, so everyone will have access to it. It's going to be free after this launching today. Everybody is allowed to download and share as to everyone's pleasure, really. Yes, it is a free product. Thank you very much. Thank you for your contribution. Sherry, you know, one thing though, I know some people might think I'm biased, but when I talk about Lancaster, there's passion, and we are from Lancaster, so I have to have to bring that out, really. But you know, anyone who remembers you would really recall you on Danan days, you know, especially like Sherry doing drama, being a traditional singer, you know, sort of those Gambia High School days. So when we contacted you, similar, within a couple of hours, you told me, oh, this is sort of a very interesting thing. But within a short time, you just sent us a sample, and we all love it. Even the sample you gave me, I wasn't sure whether that was sort of a lullaby or just sort of another traditional. And we confirmed that it was. And for the moment, we thought it wasn't a Gambian traditional lullaby. We thought it was Senegalese. But we later learned that actually it is a Gambian traditional lullaby. So, you know, over to you as well. Can you share your sort of reflection on all this, please?
Okay, after praising the Almighty Allah and praying to him, a big salam to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the other prophets, I say assalamu alaikum to you, everyone. Actually, first of all, I would like to say that I'm very happy to be part of this project, because like anyone who knows Sherry knows me with my cultural stuff, you know. So really, it's a pleasure to be in this project. Okay, going back to what Kumba was saying, you know, lullaby have been here for a very long time. It's something that is, you know, songs sung around the world in different languages, different tribes, you name it. So we are not an exception. As you can see, Gambia, or I can see Africa or Senegambia in general, we have a very rich culture, traditions, you name it. So lullaby is one of our fundamental heritage, I can say, because it's like a connection from a mother to their babies. Because I mean, these are the first words that you sing to your baby. And you know, with mothers and babies, they have this bond. I mean, sometimes when the baby is not well or not comfortable, singing these lullabies ease their pain at the same time, you know, can get them to sleep. And, you know, I mean, it's so the place where you feel like singing to your baby, the baby looking at you, you looking at the baby, that is something, a connection, a bonding that, you know, is very unique between a mother and their children. And going back to what Kumba was saying, it's very important that we still have this culture and traditions. I mean, songs, stories, you name it. Like I say, going back to the first time you called me about this lullaby, in fact, that time I was even singing to my grandson, because with lullabies, like Kumba says, you don't have to be a singer, you don't have to be an artist or whatever. It's just like words that you just sing, you know, to what can I say? Just, you know, to make the baby comfortable. I mean, good words, you know, because it's a baby that you are singing to. So obviously you want them to learn these words even when they grow up. And this is something that, you know, we have to preserve. This is something we should not let die out, you know. We have to pass it from generation to generation. But it's hardly now that you see somebody singing lullabies to their children or whatever. But this is something we shouldn't let die down, you know. We have to pass it to our children so that they can pass it to their children, because we have to know who we are and where we come from. So, I mean, this project definitely, I think, is so far one of the best projects I can say, because it's just like taking us back to memory lane, at least showing us who we are. And we have to be proud of ourselves to keep this heritage, you know, because it's very fundamental, like I said.
Thank you ever so much, Amiseri. Thank you very much. Indeed, this would be, we're documenting this for posterity. So basically, we are all on the same page. We needed to do this, and it's good that we are on this project now. So we just maybe want to hear a few more before we close this. Maybe we just go back to the host to give us a few more songs. Okay. Over to you, Mr.
Sona Mariama, oh Sona Mariama, dindi ubalanta bana fayedola Sona Mariama, akabita la kujela kuma woyoda la Sona Mariama, minim bambu oh Sona Mariama, tilo binam fala Sona Mariama, Sona Mariama, oh Sona Mariama, dindi ubalanta bana fayedola Sona Mariama, akabita la kujela kuma woyoda la Sona Mariama, minim bambu oh Sona Mariama, tilo binam fala Sona Mariama, minim bambu oh Sona Mariama, tilo binam fala Sona Mariama. Ayo nene tuti joyo, yayam dem na salum nyeti nekla, nyenen tel ba wanywa wanyi burla, burba buri salum. Ayo nene tuti ñene tuuti jooyo yaayam dem na Saalum Saalum ñetti néeg la ñenenteel ba waañ wa waañi buur la buur ba buuri Saalum ayo nene tuuti jooyo
Diwo dina julobe bala na majo na yekuya e wali diwo dina julobe bala na majo na yekuya dinki fololu wolu musoma leti na majo na yekuya dimmusu fololu wolu musiro leti na majo na yekuya ay wali diwo dinna julube bala na majo na yekuya dinke fulanja wal mutambaleti na majo na yekuya dimmusu fulanja wal mukumbaleti na majo na yekuya ay wali diwo dinna julube bala na majo na yekuya dimmusu fulanja wal mukumbaleti na majo na yekuya dimmusu sabanja wal mufendaleti na majo na yekuya ay wali diwo dinna julube bala na majo na yekuya lagare kelu ay wali diwo dinna julube bala na majo na yekuya ding labalu wal mulagare lati na majo na yekuya ay wali diwo dinna julube bala na majo na yekuya
sama nene sabar ye cendayan woy bul jooy ndar say bul jooy sama nene ayo be yo bul jooy sama nene sabar ye cendayan woy bul jooy ndar say bul jooy sama nene ayo be yo sama xarit sama soppe dunda matu jooyo doom loolay ñaan doom dundal boo dundee ba nga magay feral samay rongoñ ye bul jooy sama nene ayo be yo bul jooy sama nene salam jooy na wetaay bul jooy sama nene sabar ye ci ndaayan woy bul jooy ndar say bul jooy sama nene ayo be yo sama xarit sama soppe dunda matu jooyo loola la ñaanal doom dundal boo dundee ba nga magay ma xam foo ma féete bul jooy sama nene ayo be yo bul jooy sama nene salam jooyul wetaay Buljoy samanene salam joy nueta.
And translations of the lullabies, release the recordings by the police band of lullabies in a diverse range of languages, publish the musical notations written by the police band so that children can read the music and play it on their instruments, encourage young artists and musicians to sample and interpret lullabies. This set up an online mechanism for people to share different versions and titles of Gambian lullabies covering all the cultures of this beloved country. I now leave you with more of Ami and Kumba in action. Well, we've already done that. Sorry, I should have done this before. All right, thank you all. Thank you very much. Thank you, and over to you again, Tech Host, for the next part of this panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Njog. And on behalf of all the Gambians, families at home and the diaspora, I thank the artists, the police band, Yaram Art, and MSDG. It is now my pleasure to invite you, our moderator, for the next session. He is Professor Pierre Gomez. He is the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academics at the University of the Gambia. On to you, Professor Gomez.
Thank you very much, Nene. Good to see you after, I think, 2 years now since our trip to Norway. And thank you also, Professor Fowl, for this opportunity. And welcome to the MSDG project on the Gambia, especially on this online fourth stake Indonesian forum. And also thank the Senjok Malik Gang for that presentation on the participants, the lullaby, and especially our sisters Amishiri and also Kumba Kuyate with their golden voices. I think this is part of the repertoire of Gambian music and Gambian culture. And through this project, you've taken us back to roots, and also our brothers and sisters in the diaspora. Culture is being brought to the doorsteps, to your doorsteps, and really it's based on the lineup and what has been proposed. It is clear that even if you are not born in the Gambia and has the exposure, it will be brought to you so that you can learn and pass it to the next generation. Ladies and gentlemen watching, this is a very interesting program that is being presented to us by the MSDG project, because today we'll be looking at a very important topic, appreciating and advancing Gambian culture in changing world. To do that, we'll be looking at different issues that will be very, very important. The uniqueness and characteristics of some elements of Gambian artistic culture. And it will be good also to reflect on the importance and the promotion and appreciation of Gambian culture and arts, and ask fundamental questions related to the challenges and opportunities facing Gambian cultural development, and obviously how Gambian artistic culture should be advanced in a changing globalized world, and among others, reflect on the specific roles that the diaspora can play in this quest in Gambian cultural development. Yes, and beyond the diaspora, everybody, what would be the role of the new citizenry? What will be the role of the new Gambian in the development of the Gambian culture, Gambian history? And therefore, like the scholar would once said, what would be your contribution? What would you bring to the banquet of civilization? Will you come empty-handed or come with something that will, something raw, something unique, something Gambian that the world can appreciate? Ladies and gentlemen, today we will have different panelists who will take us through. Before we have the discussions, we'll have two experts in this area, one an academic and the other a music practitioner, and that is Dr. Mamadou Salah of Damanfo University, who is an academic, a prolific writer and publisher also in Damanfo, will take us through and also through this work, and also Sona Jobate, an international award-winning musician, and the uniqueness of it really going against our traditional norm to some extent, with the patriarchal system where sometimes the women are to sit at the periphery. Here, she takes the instruments and really play with it, and with that golden voice, she will also be given the opportunity to talk to us. So both of them will be given 12 minutes to give us the keynote address here. And Dr. Salah, so we have the pleasure to welcome you and to talk to Gambians and Gambians in the diaspora, but also talk to the world. Bring culture to the center. Over to you, Dr. Salah.
Professor Gomez, I've just got a notice that Banjul are having connection issues. So they're asking if you can kindly start with Sona instead.
Oh, okay, okay. All right, thank you very much. Sorry for that. Well, it happened nowadays with the network, but I was told that the ACE cable is back, but that's also, but then yeah, in fact, it's good. It's good, you know, technology sometimes help us to reconnect, to put things in proper perspective, and as they normally say, women first. That would have been a very good connection, in fact. And now, really, nature wants us to put things in order. So let's give the floor to the golden voice, to the musician, to the women that has decided to really break the taboo, and then now take the lead and be part of the leading musicians in this country and international musicians. And always very proud whenever I see her in the international stage and talking about the Gambia. So at least some will now know where the Gambia is located. So Sona, over to you.
Thank you so much. I hope everyone can hear me. I think I've pressed the right button. Thank you, Mr. Gomez, for your very warm introduction. I'm humbled by that. And yeah, before I start, just a quick thank you, of course, to the invitation to be here, especially to Malik for inviting me on this panel. Excellent job that you've done with what we witnessed at the beginning there. And of course, I have to greet my definitely long lost sister over there in, I don't even know where she is right now, but Kumba, so great to see your face. And of course, even better to hear your voice. And And Ami Cherry, of course, as well. Beautiful. Thank you so much for the work that you've done on this project. Between all of you, it's amazing. And exactly what we love to see and what makes us so proud of the culture and what we have. And there's so much to show the world, definitely, in terms of the culture and the history. So I'm aware I have 12 minutes. I'm known to be able to talk forever, so I'm going to keep it as short as I can and just be able to stick to the point a little bit. And I think regarding this question of culture, really what I wanted to share was actually a little bit of a different perspective, I think, than what a lot of people might be expecting when we talk about culture, specifically in the Gambia and of course as well in Africa at large. Culture for me is such an important part of our society. I think that there's often, especially in the Gambia, we focus a lot on trying to bring a lot to the culture, trying to bring exposure to the culture. But again, I think it's important as well to see another side of this story where culture is, as I mentioned, is intrinsic. It really is a part of the fabric of every society. It's something that is very alive and it's very much in the present. It's not something that is old. It's not something that should be regarded as something of the past. So this is something that I'm very motivated by and very inspired to make sure that I can spread that message, not just in the Gambia, but of course internationally, because there is a lot of misconceptualization internationally about African cultures being something of the past and being very much static and old. And this is a question that I want to raise all over, which is that culture is living, and we must always make sure that our cultures are relevant to the present day for them to be relevant, and for the next generation to feel that inspiration to pursue them. I do feel as well that culture is generally underutilized and often marginalized and kind of treated as if it's something that we have to kind of pump it up to stay alive. We got to do something to make it, or inject it to make it present and make it alive. But for me, again, if we even look at some other countries, and we can see that cultural practices are the very bedrock of society. They are intrinsic to the very proud values that those countries have of their nation. And this is something that I want to see much more of in the Gambia, where we treat our cultures as an intrinsic part of our nation building, not just how do we develop culture separate from the rest of our society, because it's intrinsic and totally inseparable from that. There is as well something I wanted to just again touch on, that this again is a wider problem, I think, than other than just Gambia, and something that I want to look at more critically is there's a kind of odd sense of consciousness when it comes to African culture at large, that it's something that, as I said, sort of needs to be in a box, that we need to define it, give it a specific place in society, and that it becomes almost an object of observation and appreciation rather than the basis upon which we do look at development holistically and on a much larger scale. So this is something that I would really love to see a move away from, and I think is really the growth of the future, and for future generations to move away from this slightly divided concept of culture and as a separate box that we need to treat. I think in a way, in order for us to consider ways in which culture can be supported and developed, we do need to look at the ways in which culture needs to be implemented and harnessed and represented at, I think, every level of society without any apology. This is actually the foundations of why what led me to set up my academy in the Gambia, which has now been running for just over 6 years. And it's actually the first institution in the country that specifically harnesses culture, tradition, and history to deliver academic education. And again, this is another example of how we can actually start to integrate our culture, history, and traditions into the mainstream of our society. And again, I think this is a very important move that we encourage and support in more institutions across the country, not just in education, but in other areas as well. And I think in order for us to change the approach and the mentality, we do need to start with education. And for me, there is an inextricable connection between education and social and economic development in any country. At the academy that I have, we teach children to a very high level of mainstream academic education. we provide, skills and training in other areas of growth, for instance, construction, agriculture, and so on. But all of this is set against the background and is seen through the lens of knowledge in their own culture and their own history, which again is very, very fundamentally important for Gambians. And again, I would move again wider to say that for Africans in general, because it's something that we do lack across the continent, I think, in our educational institutions. It's, for example, the fact I find it often a good example of the journey that we need to, and the bridge that we have to make, which is, it's often celebrated and observed and kind of pointed out that I teach students to understand their own history, playing their own instruments, allow them to speak in their own languages, and formalize their own dress code that's relevant to their own culture. I think the fact that we draw attention to that, and the fact that that is something that I've consciously had to do, shows the distance that we have to go, and the processes that are important for us to go through for our institutions in the country. Again, highlighting that tradition and culture is marginalized. I often complain that I have to say traditional music when I'm in Gambia. That doesn't make sense. Music is music. When we're in the Gambia, we are automatically talking about our traditions. We're automatically talking about our culture. So I think this is also it's a mentality, an approach, and a concept that we have to actively try to change in the next generation, where it's the norm. Their culture is the norm, their history is the norm, and anything else is additional to that. And it has to be taught in that way, because it does change their approach, and I think the self-worth of their own culture and their own traditions. I think, again, I've illustrated this to especially people abroad trying to understand what it is that I'm trying to campaign for in some way with education and with the academy. I think it's a very powerful message being conveyed to students who, when they are in school, for example, they come to school in European clothes, they speak, read, and write only in European languages, they observe the African teachers dress only in Western clothes in order to be considered properly dressed for work. They sit in classrooms which emulate foreign aesthetics and learn histories which also depict foreign realities. And again, through these norms, I feel like we're continuing to maintain that subconscious idea of being successful, being educated, and having that kind of future goals is synonymous with either being European or trying to emulate the European. And this is what I want to undo from the inside out. And again, this is the relevance of making sure that as an academy within the country that puts the culture of the Gambia first, from an everyday systematic approach to our education. And there it becomes a place where the children don't even think about what it is and who they are and their own identity. It becomes the norm, and it's something they practice every day. And I'm so excited to see these children blossom into the future and to be able to show what actually happens when we make those changes from an early age. I feel like, placing our own cultural values and practices at the center of our education experience will definitely contribute to a creation of a generation of Africans who will be innately proud of their culture, confident who they are as Africans, as Gambians, and also proactive contributors to the development of the nation at large. I also want to draw attention to our artists in the country. I think there's so much more support and there's so much more platforms we can be giving to those people to be able to do what it is that they're there to do, which is to represent the country, represent the cultures that there is. And for that reason, I much prefer to regard them as cultural ambassadors. We see Kumba, we see Ami here. These are cultural ambassadors of the country. They're not singers and artists. Again, we're kind of boxing them into a very limited outreach. And this is something, again, I want to get away from. These are people who are carrying the history, the legacy on their shoulders. And we need to celebrate them in that way and make sure that we give them a platform that doesn't limit them just to being a musician, but actually gives them that platform to be able to spread that message much further and wider than what I think they currently are having. And I think there's also that growth where there's a lot of people who either look to leave the country because there may be more opportunities that they see abroad as an artist, or because they feel that there's a limited career path within the Gambia. And that's also something we have to actively start to change, and it does change through us being able to actually structurally start to change systems which recognize cultural ambassadors as people who are valuable assets to the development of the country, not, as I said, a marginalized group of people who come to entertain us when we're eating and drinking or something like that. They are really important, fundamental people who are carrying that culture internationally and nationally for our future generations. So I think, as I said, I talk. So I think I'll go to my conclusion. Really, for me, it's. I think point I'm making is it's not so much about trying to build a kind of more beautiful ornate cage for our culture in terms of how do we sort of boost this cultural thing that's kind of, again, safely away from real conversations of nation building and national development. I think this is a topic that does need to be addressed intrinsically and put at the center of our norms, and obviously made a central part of our modern society, so that people feel that culture represents them in the new world, that it is a form of expression that they can use to express modern problems. They don't have to go away to a different culture. They don't have to use different art forms to do that. They can do that from within their own culture. And this has to be demonstrated by people who are actively involved in it now and today. And I really want to see it dispersed within the very fabric of our modern society. And for me, then I really feel that that's when we're going to see the true potential of culture, the power and growth and impact both nationally and internationally for it. I think I will stop there.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sona. I think it's very, very clear. There's this notion out there that culture is seen as something secondary and being perceived as a peripheral issue. And you've now demonstrated beyond reasonable doubt that it is the bedrock of our society, and there's need for stakeholders to look at, to put all strategies in place to implement and harness our culture, and then also try to really come up with mechanisms and put it in our education system, and for the citizenry to discover self through culture, but also discovering your identity through your culture. You know, you have your culture, you know yourself. And then artists are not supposed to be treated as second-class citizens or non-entities to some extent, but then as ambassadors, because they have something to offer to the world. They spread the good news, the cultural good news. So really, that culture is very important. It is. It helps sustain development. So thank you very much. And you know, I think once again it was good for us to start with you to reaffirm that foundation, that no development, no sustainable development, if it is not culturally rooted. On the note now, we can, I think maybe the network must be should work now with Dr. Mamadou Sallah from the SNF4 University as an academic, as somebody who has now tried in his work to take the cultural dimension to the classroom, to the academic, and to the rest of the world, by now trying to now create, allowing different cultures to talk to each other. Then, so you can use your experience and the practice in academia, how you try to now reconnect and reposition for both Gambians and non-Gambians to understand the power of culture. Doc, over to you.
Thank you very much, Professor Gomez, for that kind introduction. Thank you very much, Professor Fall and the entire team for putting the event together. I just want to talk about three main things today. I want to start by locating myself in terms of theoretically and hinging my thoughts around a conceptual framework. I'll do that in a couple of minutes. Then from there, I will actually talk about my attempts, you know, almost as a heretic to actually disrupt from both an academic and from a practice point of view in labeling myself as a scholar activist interested in both worlds. And then I will go on to actually talk a little bit about some challenges and also maybe some solutions that I can offer. Just to start with, you know, when I was studying in 1998, when I left the Gambia and went to study, you know, and I took along some of my poems, and then I showed it to one of my friends from France, and then he looked at it and said, "Pourquoi mon ami?" So in my last book that came out in 2018 called The Dictator and the Heretic, I tried to respond to him. And I'm just going to read you a few lines from that will allow me to contextualize what I will go on to say. "Pourquoi mon ami? Pourquoi parles-tu toujours des blessés et de la mort? Pourquoi?" And this was my response to him. "My friend, you do not understand, because my vocabulary is defined by who I am, what I eat. My vocabulary is who I am because of what I wear every day. In my vocabulary, there are no flowers. In my vocabulary, there is only blood, painted blood, blood that paints the streets and the tattooed trees, blood that paints the lives, the hopes, the dreams, So this is the painted blood. So my vocabulary must be about blood and pain and suffering and tears, red tears. My art is defined by my environment. I draw from the bad arts." So I think in here, I'm just trying to kind of like, trying to locate my culture, trying to locate who I am. And then in locating who I am, I have to talk about my environment. I am nothing without my environment. And I think when we talk about culture, I am drawn to what Owusu Bempah says, because he says that culture, more or less, is a composite structure of beliefs, methodology, religion, ideas, sentiments, institutions, and objects, internalized in varying degrees by its members, and which guides and regulates their thoughts and conduct. The culture of a given group is the sum of the shared ways of thought, reactions, rituals, customs, and habits or behavior acquired directly or vicariously by its members. And I think this is quite important, you know, in talking about culture, that we're talking about a complete and a holistic approach to our understanding. So it's not only about the arts and the music and the dancing, it's about the food, it's about the education system, it's about how reality is constructed in totality. And I think this is very, very important, because we're sometimes quite good at kind of segregating all of these different components. So in moving that, I want to talk about two ideas the Sousa talks about. One of them is about epistemicide. And epistemicide is the destruction, the total destruction of knowledge systems. And through the process of slavery and colonialism, this has had an impact, and which has resulted in what she calls cognitive injustice, which is about the failure to recognize other people's different ways of knowing and being, which gives meaning to their existence. So who we are as a people is rooted in our culture and our understanding of ourselves. Our identity is rooted in that. So I remember when I was going to primary school, and then we used to wear this symbol. So if you speak in vernacular, you have to wear this stinky collection of the dirtiest, smelliest stuff. And that actually taught us and conditioned us unconsciously to appreciate everything that is good and Western, but also to question and to denigrate everything that is local. It's a self-degradation act. So I think it's very, very important we understand that the culture is not an alien thing, that culture is not an external thing that had nothing to do with our daily lives. When you look at bleaching, when you look at the wearing of weaves, when you look at our education system, when you look at our army was modeled on a colonial occupation to occupy and to divide and rule and to conquer. You know, I want to see our army actually, like Rwanda, building. Our need is not our foreign enemy necessarily. Our present need is hunger and underdevelopment. So it's about how do we decolonize these institutions. I think it's really, really important, because if we have been subjected over years to epistemicide, and there is also very clear evidence of cognitive injustice, whether it's self-inflicted or inflicted externally, this seep into everything that we do. I can wake up and in my farm and drink some lemongrass and drink some moringa and then cut some wonjo and make it. But actually, if people come to visit me, if I don't give them canned drinks, actually they're not happy. and bottled drinks. So it's all about the mindset. It's all about the cultural orientation, because it's not only about the music and the dancing. Culture is so much deeper than that. It's the collective rituals as the ways of thought, the construction of reality. So it's very, very important that we understand the destructive impact. And I think this allows me to locate what I've been trying to do, because as a scholar activist who's interested both in the production of knowledge, but also in the inaction of knowledge, in terms of our ways of knowing, our ways of being, how can I change that? How can I develop disruptive pedagogy? How can I engage in acts of resistance? You know, because it's not only about something that you enjoy, it's actually totally linked to our way of life. So some of the things I've tried to do is to set up Global Hands Publishing. And Global Hands Publishing has published about 12 books by prominent Gambians and also emerging Gambians. I remember at one point getting a group of young Gambians in early 2010 or 11 and saying to them that, you know what, folks, I'm going to allow you to put together, support you, do a workshop, and put together a collection of poems by young Gambians. And it's called A Harvest of Gambian Lines. And it's gone on. People like Dr. Barry and his work on land repeaters, which actually has been lost for a long time. Professor Gomez and his work on Baba Silla, his work on gendered voices and gendered cultural discrimination. We talked about the works of Tijan Sala, who is a prominent writer. We talk about Baba Gale Jallow. We talk about Hausum Sise. I had no idea that one of the most prominent slavers at that time was a Gambian woman, you know, in 18 something. And I read the book and I said, wow, I wish I had learned more about my culture, about my history. I could tell you about Christopher Columbus and Nina and Pinta and Santa Maria. I could tell you about Sir Francis Drake. I could tell you about the Magna Carta. But all of these histories, all of this cultural because culture allows us to hook ourselves and our identity around these texts. And we had to hook it on other people's way of seeing us. And this is still prevalent. The way we dress, the way we eat, how we bleach, what we wear, how we behave, what we think are civilized, are all linked. We cannot be isolated in that globalization, which is hinged on a capitalist kind of like monopoly and around money, materialism, and the Washington consensus is very, very prevalent, is very, very dominant. And it's all about marketing, it's about consumption. That is the way it is meant to be, it is designed to be. So if we can be sold all of these drinks and all of these foods and all of this ointment and all of this moisturizer, all of these products, to be told that what we know as beautiful is not beautiful. You know, when you have all of the, you know, that beautiful African woman in all her glory, in all her shape and size, and be told that actually that is not beautiful anymore. And we have to see ourselves in other people's eyes. That has links to music, to media, to how our stars behave and our stars actually present themselves. So it is very, very important. So we publish these books. Because we wanted, and I'm glad that, and I need to recognize Professor Pierre Gomez here, in that he's been at the forefront together with Charno Barry and Dr. Barry as president of WAG, Writers Association of the Gambia, and people like Hausum Sise, who've been quite kind of like cardinal in pushing the agenda forward. But to get our books now being used as core textbook in the University of the Gambia, my job is done. Now I can retire and go and sleep, because the whole point was to actually to disrupt the curriculum, which we have seen as dominant. I mean, we've been organizing also the logic of the system. I see that, Auntie Khadija is here and she's there, but we, if you remember, some of us, we brought in Ngugi wa Thiong'o to the Gambia, and we did a big conference on questioning the logic of the system. I think since 2013 or 14, I've been organizing annual questioning the logic of the system. So people like Honorable Ivasala, people like Baba Silla, people like Ngugi wa Thiong'o, we've had Professor Fall, Jibril Fall, we had Ibrahim Assal. We had some really interesting people actually who come annually to this logic of the system, where we have a key person headlighting it, questioning the logic of the system, promoting counter-orthodoxy perspectives, challenging normality. And then these people would provide the shade so that other people, other emerging writers, other younger writers would actually stand under on their shoulders to actually try to reach for the sky. And we've been promoting a lot of people. We've also, in that, by the same token, set up the Journal of Critical Southern Studies, which is actually focused on scholarship and Southern perspective. And we've been running it since 2014, promoting counter-orthodoxy perspectives from across the world. And this is about changing the narratives. This is about providing the muscle of the mind to the hands of development that we seek to engender. So we did also, I was part of the people who set up the Mboka Festival. I've had to go and pursue other things, but I'm still rooting for Khadija and Adam Abba, actually in promoting this wonderful initiative. And as part of it, we've been running the Manduwar Cultural Festival. So we had Tata Dinding, and we've had Jaliba Koyate, and we've had some international artists, and we've had some local artists. And, you know, when the Bukarabu beats, you know, I cannot restrain myself. I have to get up and shake it properly. So, and I think we've been getting, you know, the Fula dancers, you know, we've been getting the Manika Dallas, you know, the Kumpo, the Samayo, and preserving what is so beautiful, you know, what is so absolutely gorgeous that we don't appreciate. So we've been doing all of those things. And I think I have a full-time job, you know, I teach at Damonford University. That's my full-time job. So I've been trying to run Global Hands, and to do the conference, and to do the study visits, and to do the books, and to do, and you know, I'm not as young as I used to be. So so the challenges are that I don't have the time to do all of these things. We've got some beautiful ideas. I could remember Njok asking me, Momodu, can you send the book 200 times? And I said, yes, I will send it. And I had every intention of sending it. It just never gets to him. And I think part of the whole issue is like, I need to realize my capacity, and that I cannot do all of these things, and that we've been mentoring a lot of other younger people to take over. So I think if you're in the diaspora trying to do some of these things, it's about, you got bills to pay, you've got a job to attend to, and you want to do all of these beautiful things. So, I mean, if you don't mind, you will develop blood pressure like me. So I think it's about pacing out time and looking at what is possible. In terms of capacity, I find out that sometimes it's really, really difficult. I mean, we've just started moving Global Hands Publishing from the UK into the Gambia, and we're in the process, you know, with a number of people to actually set this up and to register Global Hands Publishing in the Gambia and take it away from the UK. And I think my partners don't know that I'm trying to just dump it on them and just go and do something else. But the whole point is actually it begins to build from the Gambia. It begins to engage our graphic designers, our proofreaders, you know, our marketing experts, and use that talent and build capacity. But capacity has been a big issue. And if you're going to do all of these big ideas and you're going to be dreaming like me, you know, touching the sky, you got to think about capacity and who you can work with. And it also involves a lot of capital investment. And I think that's kind of like, you know, that's also part of the difficult things. We've just been basing our intervention on charity and on social good. And I think that is really, really good. But you will end up spending a lot of money, you know, because I've been quite keen to build capacity. You know, we've built Global Hands, we've built a development hub in the Gambia. We've been doing some interesting things like building compressed air drink machine, building solar dryers, you know, running Africa's first solar powered taxi service in the Gambia. So we've been doing all of these things. The problem is that the capital investment is quite heavy. And I wanted us to build independence, economic independence, so that with or without funding, we'll do things. But that can sometimes be a very tall order and stretches us, those of us who are involved financially, kind of like to a very, very large extent. So if you're gonna come from diaspora and do all of these things, you're gonna build it, in my opinion, more like a social enterprise and a profit element to it. Because if you do it for 1 year, 2 years, it's very, very good. It's all about social good, but man or woman has got to pay the bills and then also got to earn daily bread. So if you're investing more of your time running these projects and you're not making any money as a result of that, that will have an impact. So how do you actually do this social good, but make it profitable so that yourself and those who are involved can actually make some kind of profit in it? I think that's really, really good. And I think the whole cultural notion, for me, the most radical suggestion is about how we decolonize the whole system, how we decolonize. I mean, when I come back and I listen to the style of Gambian music, to the quality, I am just absolutely, I just cannot stop dancing. It's just so beautiful. And our young people, as they say, are growing roses in concrete floors, and they're doing some beautiful things with very limited stuff. So I think it's very, very important that we continue to encourage that we own it. We have to recognize the forces of globalization. We have to recognize that market forces, capitalist forces, neoliberal forces, based on Washington consensus, will have an impact on what we do. But at the same time, our clothing, our food, our music, our dance, our education system, our army, our administration need to be decolonized completely, wholesale, without any apology for that matter. So on that note, I'll shut up now, and I'll hope to pick it up on the conversation later.
Thank you very much, Dr. Salah. Well, that's it. When a scholar activist takes the floor, you can see the passion. And that was the reason why that French, your friend, the Frenchman asked you, pourquoi mon ami? Oui, pourquoi mon ami? Because of the message that you were trying to put across. Yes, the painted blood. And that was the reason why, pourquoi mon ami? Pourquoi mon ami? Because of the identity that your identity is rooted in your culture, and that's what you wanted to put across. Pourquoi mon ami? Because that culture is not alien, and pourquoi mon ami? Because you wanted to decolonize the system. You wanted to question the logic. Pourquoi mon ami? You want to now reclaim your identity. You want to reclaim your independence. Yes, and you want to respond to what Dr. Landry Wilfred Peters said. What did you do with your independence? And you don't want to be at the periphery and watch. That's why even being a scholar, you want to be useful to society, like a citizen. A citizen exists because he is useful to himself, to his family, and to society in general. So therefore, development, as the scholar artist understands it, must be culturally rooted, and all hands must be on deck to support culture, promote culture, and people to understand their culture, their identity, and shape their destiny. That's the key message here. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have some discussions. We have 5, 6 of them, 5, and we'll start. We have Dr. Chernobari, and then we'll have Dr. Mariama Khan, Hasum Sise, Jok Mari Jeng, and Khadija George Sise. So Dr. Chernobari, who is the president of the Writers Association of the Gambia, is also currently the executive secretary of the Human Rights Commission. He was with UNESCO, both here in the Gambia and in Paris, and former UTG lecturer. He's wearing many, many caps, but what is key here, he's very, very interested in the development and promotion of Gambian culture in general and literature in particular. Dr. Barry, over to you.
Thank you very much, Professor Gomez. It is my honor to join you on this panel to discuss on the issue at hand. Knowing that I'm just a discussant, contrary to my colleague who has been very expressive just a while ago, I will probably get directly to the point. I want to greet everybody who is around. The cultural expression that has been mentioned.
Sorry, Dr. Barry, you have 5 minutes, and yes, the rest of the discussions will also have 5 minutes.
Indeed. So let me capitalize on it. Cultural expression, as defined by the previous speakers, clearly defines actually a people. It defines a community. When we talk about culture, it is exactly the identity that is attached to a particular community, people, a group. Is what makes them what they are, naturally, because the first that you think about is about the language, the dress, the religion, the work of art, their expression. It has been mentioned by both Sona and Dr. Sala. It's the music, it's the dance, the folklore, the storytelling. It's the proverbs, the drama, the poetry. But also it's the practice of it, it's the ceremonies. You know, when you get to a naming ceremony, the expression of the culture, when you get to an initiation from childhood to adulthood, when you get to a marriage, it's the transformation from a phase to another. But this is also all expressions of feelings, of emotions. Because if you talk about culture, you're talking about how you express your pains, your joys, your frustration, your concern, your identity. And when you talk about identity, this is now the whole concept of having to either lose your culture or having to regain your culture, or having to preserve your culture. And it gets to a much bigger point in that regard. So in the case of the Gambia, and in particular, but in Africa in general, most of our cultures have been mostly based on the orality of it, apart from the other forms of expression. We've got, for example, when it comes to literary expressions, it's more of oral. It's in the proverbs, it's in the poetry, it's in the sanakuya. How do you relate with the other group? How do you relate within a group? How do you relate within a tribe? So this defines a people. The Gambia, being luckily what it is, has this what we call the cultural diversity, this rich cultural cacophony of colors. As Dr. Sala said, if you listen to the music, you are tempted to dance. And this is the music of the kora, the music of the halam, the music of the tama, but then you also look at it from the other perspective. It is in the diction, it's in the literature, it's in the art of speaking, in the art of writing. Unfortunately, this is where now the transition comes from the orality to the written. Basically, our whole culture has been for the expression more of orality. So it is more of how much of how good you are when you become an oral communicator, how much of diction you can carry in expressing feelings without hurting, in mediating between people without, in a more of a joke or a jovial manner. And this is where the musician can play a role. This is where the griot can play a role. This is where the storyteller can relay a message. So it becomes quite enriching for somebody speaking from the perspective of literature and literary expression. So naturally, if you look at the history, especially within the Senegambia region, I'm sure most of us who have done a little bit of that research would remember what they would call the negritude where there has been cultural resistance. And this is tied to a little bit to what Dr. Sala mentioned. How do you now go against the voices, against those voices that have always promoted what is alien, promoted what is out, to make you believe that when you study the language, you will have to also, practice the culture that goes with the language. Assimilation, as the French would call it. You have to wear a vest and a tie. You have to sit on a table. You have to eat with a fork and a spoon. When gradually then you become alienated, you drawing away from it. And that negritude came to say, look, there is another cultural element of it that we will need to promote. And that brought in the black negritude. And I'm sure somebody who has already read a little bit of the Anglophone as perspective of negritude brought in the tigritude. That no, it's not only about the spots on the tiger or the lines on the zebra. It's more about how you also valorize where you come from, what you are from the beginning. How do you conceptualize it? How do you evolve in that? How do you preserve it? How do you express it against all odds, against the whole concept of language, of dress, of a way of life? And this is why it was very interesting when we had Ngugi wa Thiong'o here some time ago, because he has been one of those expressing voices when it comes to using your language, changing the narrative from the perspective of your own language. I'm sure Ahmadou Kourouma of Mali is a good example when he wrote Soleil de l'Indépendance in a Bambara language. You know, he said, I'm going to write French in Bambara. And when he did, he was, he was rejected by the most important publishing company, Say. And he has to struggle very hard to publish his book because nobody wanted to read that book. They said it's a Bambara French, but he's resisted because it is all a perspective of, getting it from the cultural perspective. And that is the whole concept of cultural promotion. Now, what is trending today? Basically, in the Gambia, for example, a lot of things are trending. We have been seeing the emergence of what we call slam poetry. Very interesting indeed, because through slam poetry, there is a lot of heavy message that is being carried. A message that of renaissance, if you want, recognizing the culture again, of sensitization, of education, of edutainment, if I can use that expression. And then we have also the emergence of comedy shows that are also valorizing some of our cultural practices, of drama, in the TVs, but also of Sanakuya, because Sanakuya has continued to be the essence of our being. The Gambia is believed to be the smiling coast of Africa, but then it is not only about the smiles. It's about the expression of openness. It's the expression of conviviality, of openness, of love towards the other. This can be disputed, I'm sure, but the Sanakuya is also very important because it has instilled amongst ourselves that kind of tolerance where you can allow people to come, because you see, above everything else, language has been the vehicle of it all. And our history has all that role to play. So what I'm now going to conclude on is the new expressions of voices. And so we have to relate to it now. We have to see the new voices that are now emerging, and then see that there is a passion now to see that we return back to that culture. We valorize it. We give importance to the values that we might have lost along the way. And I think this is the whole concept today. And I'm sure that the debates that are going to trend on after this discussion or during this discussion would be, how do we get on with it from here onwards? How do we keep giving value to what we might have lost, be it the music, the dance, the folklore, the storytelling, the poetry, etc. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Barry. I think, yes, during Q&A, really we'll be able to continue from that. This is very, very interesting. Yes, it's about the refusal of the alienation, but also sort of a celebration of a way of life, a new system, a different civilization. And that's what we need to do, and then rediscover ourselves. And yes, to do so, we can also have another discussion that is our sister Mariama Khan from Lehman College, City University of New York. And as you know, Mariama wrote also different books, Futa Toro, and also Jufure, Kissing You with Hurting Lips. Mariama, please. And yes, you will not be asked, pourquoi, ma sœur? Over to you.
Professor Gomez, I will disappoint you. You seem to be very excited to hear from Mariama. Unfortunately, she's not been able to connect, and she's given her apologies. So sorry for the disappointment. And maybe you can perhaps ask Khadija to come on next if she's ready.
Good, good. At least, well, we hope to hear from Mariama Khan next time. Yes, and if Khadija George Cisse is available, our sister, also Khadija, who has been promoting Gambian culture, Gambian literature, but African literature, culture, and link it also with the diaspora, like Dr. Salah earlier on, trying to help publish the Gambians and Africans, both in Africa and in the diaspora, through several. Khadija George was doing so, and also the practice that Dr. Salah talked about through the Mocha Festival, among other activities. So, Khadija, welcome to your terrain. This is what you've been doing in your corner, in your comfort zone. Share it with the rest of the world. Let them hear that voice.
Thank you. Greetings, everybody. I will try and keep this short. So this is general greeting, general Happy New Year. I hope it started well for everybody. I've just been asked maybe to respond to maybe some of the discussions that have gone on at the moment. And I think it's what has been so great to hear is that both of the keynote speakers have shown that we're all on the same platform. They're just talking from slightly different angles, but we're saying the same thing. And that same thing in one word is decolonization. It's got to happen. And we're at that stage in the world now where it has to go in that direction. And for Gambia not to move in that same direction, to think that it would follow the status quo of what it was 5 years ago or even 2 years ago, then they'll be going backwards rather than advancing. So the opportunities are there to kind of grab it and move forward in the way of decolonization, exactly in terms of practice in the way that Sona was talking about was absolutely beautiful and wonderful, is what we all want to hear. And even in terms of as well what Dr. Salah was doing, and in terms of as well taking the publishing to the Gambia, it's all really important, because in terms of the and the decolonization has to happen within the continent, but also outside of the continent when people are going abroad and when we're taking anything of the culture abroad, it has to go in that direction. Because in terms of the content and in terms of the structure. So it's no good, like in my university at the moment in Brighton, they're very excited, they're decolonizing the curriculum. I said, what's the good in decolonizing the curriculum if you're not decolonizing the structure? We're not going anywhere. We have to kind of look at things in those ways. And in terms of artists, in terms of like in the diaspora, as some of you know, I've just been working on the exhibition of Khadija Say's visual artwork, which is, people can access it on the British Library website. It's not going to be an online exhibition, but there will be a video there, which I'd like to thank Malik Jeng and Hassoum Sissé for being expert advisors on that project. And the visual artwork of Khadija Say, who died in the Grenfell fire in the UK, she did that very thing, even though she was a young woman diaspora artist, only 24. She started from the base of her Gambian culture. She put that first. I mean, at the age of 24, she was at the Venice Biennale, which is a major thing for anybody, but even at that age. And then she wove in the intricacies and the technology of the European, of technology that she gained afterwards. You know, so all of the work came from the bases. It was all titled with Gambian words. And so when we were deconstructing it to try and understand what she was doing, we had to deconstruct it from a Gambian base, not from a European base. So that was really exciting. And that's what people love. And that is what we continually have to do. So even when we talk in terms of what we're doing, we have to start with Africa first and then put the European stuff afterwards. And it's so easy, we all do it because that's how we've all been raised. And it's so easy to put UK first. So even I have to, when I'm being asked about my identity, I have to say, no, I'm African British, I'm not British African. You've got to put the Africa first. And this is how we've got to encourage our young people to continually do that, so that even when those, if they are not born in Africa, but just in terms of locating it from Europe, that they're always thinking of putting Africa first. It's very, very important. And that's the way things are going to, we can see that that is the way that things are started, and we have to, even if there's going to be some resistance, we've just got to keep pushing to make sure that that's there. So I was really glad as well to hear, especially since I'm from the writing perspective as well, that Global Hands is going to be Gambian based. we've mentioned Ngugi wa Thiong'o a couple of times, and he really loved being in the Gambia and loved what we were doing. And so what he allowed us to do, for example, is take one of his short stories from Kikuyu and translate it into Gambian languages, because there's a strength for African people to see classic work in their own languages rather than reading it in translation in English. And then we even did the same with Linton Kwesi Johnson, who's a dub poet. We went from Jamaican patois to Wolof. We didn't go from Jamaican patois to English to Wolof. We went from Jamaican patois to Wolof, and we were able to do that. And those are the things we continually have to do. So like I said, in terms of the speakers, the keynote speakers, thank you, because you're demonstrating already that it's not difficult to do, starting putting Gambia first and putting Africa first. And we continually have to do that. And so not only in terms of we're always in terms of saying whether we're taking the young people moving forward, but in terms of, if it's possible, their parents and their and whoever is looking after them, in terms of not encouraging them to do that, and not kind of saying that they have to, that not only kind of supporting them if they're putting European frameworks first, and that putting the African ones is a good thing to put first. I think, and that still happens in Africa, and it still happens as well in the diaspora, in terms of, for example, yes, if you don't learn English well, then you're not going to do very well. We've got to kind of get rid of all of that notion. But I think it's happening. I think it's happening. And when you do it from the cultural base, everything else actually moves forward much easier after that, because the culture is the foundation of it. So if we're starting from there, it makes everything else much easier. So thank you. And I just wanted to say, you have to excuse me, I have to leave early for another meeting, but I'll still be on for another little while. So thank you, Dr. Gomez, and thank you, Professor Fall, for inviting me to respond.
Thank you very much, Khadija. I think that's a very good contribution, and it's really to the point. Yes, before I ask the next, how to call it, discussion, may I remind you that you can contribute. Later there will be questions and answers, but also people can write their questions and also in the chat box. And also, if you want to ask questions, maybe you can click the raise hand button if you want to speak during the Q&A. But we are yet to read that. I think we need to go back to the center. We're talking about culture, and there's need to really go back to that reservoir of culture in the Gambia. That is the National Center for Arts and Culture. And there, if we talk about NCAC, obviously there's a household name, that is Hasum Sise. Hasum is a historian, a literary critic, and he has written many books, Gambian women and introductory history, profiles and historical notes of Gambian women, and he co-authored with me geocritical representation of Banjul. So Hasum is an excellent promoter of Gambian culture, Gambian history. Hasum, I think he would have even given Profile your entire salary just to be given 1 second to just promote Gambian culture and Gambian history. Over to you, Hassan.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good evening to everybody. Professor, thank you very much. To all my friends and colleagues in the panel, it's a pleasure for me. Professor Fall, thanks for inviting us to join this very important discussion. The points are well noted. all the, discussants, have raised some very, very important, issues. I was just watching, like Hadija says, exhibition, online, thanks to, Khadija, and really, as a Gambian, an arts administrator also, I feel very, very much, elated and satisfied that in the diaspora, there are people working very, very hard, including our late sister.
Azum. It seems that we've lost Hasum because of network.
Hello, I'm back. Hello, hello, Professor.
Okay, thank you.
Can you get me? I'm back.
Yes, please continue.
Yeah, sorry for that. Yes, yeah. And now, my contribution, will be centered really on like a historical approach, to the whole, sector, the arts and culture sector, as it evolved, from colonial rule to now, because even the colonialists, had like a cultural, agenda, when they were here in the Gambia. For example, they did very well to promote, the teaching of one or two local languages in the schools. And then even after independence, really, the PP government also had very progressive, cultural and artistic agenda. The development, of the National Archives. In fact, one of the first projects of the PP government after February 1965 was to develop a National Archives. To bring together all the documents relating to Gambian history in one place. And immediately after that, the development of what was called the Cultural Archives, where our former boss and mentor, Mr. Bakari Sidibe, played a very, very important part. So you see, in the first year of independence, the government had this agenda to develop the cultural, archives, and to develop like what is now called, like the National Archives, under, the late Mr. Stephen Ahmad Bahu. Even for a national museum, by 1967, you had what was called Friends of the Museum. There was nothing like a museum yet, but you had people like, Dr. Florence Mahoney, like Mr. Bakari Sidibe, like Mr. Bahum, the late, Miss Faith Renner, all of them coming together to form this association called Friends of the Museum. And as they traveled the country, they were collecting, artifacts, such that by 1985, these artifacts had been put together into a national museum. You see, in 1974, the first, legislation concerning arts and culture, was promulgated, the Oral History and Antiquities, and Monuments Act, and in the same year, the Gambian National Troupe, was reformed, because in 1966, when the Gambia participated in the Festival of Black Arts in, Senegal, the troupe that went, was declared a national troupe. You see, so just to tell you that even soon after independence, our government really did not forget the important role that arts and culture can play in the evolution of the new nation called the Gambia. You see, and of course in '74 the national troupe was reformed. And by the 80s, there has been a lot of developments, the movement, in literature, Prof, this, more than I do. Danan, for example, at the individual level, at the, civil society level, people, who were, inclined, to promote literature, to promote Gambian writing, as an expression, of the Gambian voice. You see, now a great achievement too really has been, like the declaration of some of our sites, heritage sites, as UNESCO World Heritage Sites, like James Allen in 2003, the stone circles, in 2006. And this is paradoxical because this was the time when we at the center were suffering from serious, budgetary, cuts. Yet we were able to have these two sites listed in the UNESCO World Heritage Sites. I'm pretty sure everybody here knows the significance of having a site listed on the UNESCO list. You see, so you can see that at the individual level too. People like Mr. Bakari Sidibe, whom I have just mentioned. My former boss. Like Baba Sise. I have seen also. My former boss here. Dr. Bala. Saho. At the individual level, we are able to achieve a lot. Despite budgetary cuts and the lack of capacity. So really, as we speak now, in the National Development Plan, for example, culture and tourism come in as priority areas. And what we have seen so far is for the first time, for example, government allocating monies in its development budget, towards cultural promotion, development of our cultural sites. We are currently, finishing a project at the Kilbach, Stone Circle site. You see, our musical groups, our artistic associations, 7 of them, have received for the first time in Gambian history, like some funds, to enable them, start doing things. So to, conclude, the trajectory since independence has been checkered, but I think, there's a lot of promise as far as the culture and artistic sector is concerned. Now, the role of government is primary, but I think, civil society and like people in the diaspora also, should continue to play their important role, the various, roles that they can play, so that, we can, see Gambian culture, creating more jobs for the youth, creating national unity, national cohesion, and also continuing to give our country a national identity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Hasum, and taking us through memory lane, and also the activities taken so far, achievements by the National Center for Arts and Culture, and also some of the other works that have been done by your predecessors and which you are continuing now. So thank you for that, and La Lucha Continua. And yes, from an institutional perspective, we also have citizens taking up and understanding that the challenge is not something that can be done by government alone, by the National Center for Arts and Culture alone, but everybody, all stakeholders. And that's the reason why you have Mr. Jog Malik Jeng, music promoter and director of Yaram Arts, is also contributing his quota for that development, that promotion of Gambian culture, so that we all go back to roots and position ourselves and offer something unique, something original, something raw to that banquet of civilization. Malik, over to you. Your mic, please. Mic. Okay, good.
Is it done? Okay. Thank you again, Dr. Gomez, and all the panelists. Well, it looks like this is a Pan-Africanist panel. I'm not sure I am qualified to wear that hat yet, but there we go. So quickly trying to respond to some of Sona's keynote. There was this issue, and she was very right. I just want to more than sort of second Sona on the subject that we need to move culture from the peripheries. We need to bring culture to the center, to the heart of everything. To me and most people, the intrinsic values of culture alone is enough justification to put as much money as possible. You cannot quantify sort of, let's say, the happiness that one gains just from going to maybe a Sona Jabate or another superstar. So it's not only money, but I think we can even go beyond that. People like yourselves here, all these arts practitioners, you may even consider sort of commissioning a survey to look at the economic sort of impact, the economic sort of contribution of our culture to the Gambian economy, or the potential. Because I think, you know, sort of relegating culture to sort of margins of society, sort of seen as not very serious people involved in it, I think that is a real wasted opportunity. A lot of other sort of, for instance, in the West, or most sort of conscious societies, they move culture, they associate culture with all sort of discipline, all sort of walks of life. If you look at the potential of mixing or linking culture with education, sort of how children at an early age, what is the impact for you Pan-Africanists? Just think of like a child from that sort of early age being sort of, you know, developed into that sort of cultural mindset. Not only would that be developing his artistry, but sort of the conscious level. And you're talking sort of, this helps sort of their capacity in terms of their knowledge and how to sort of develop academically as well. This is proven. We're looking at culture and health. Not much is done, but there's enough sort of proof. Like I read a report yesterday from Lawrence Stewart. These people have sort of independent projects coming from UK and working with sort of the Kenyaling society in the rural areas of Gambia. And they're working with women. They're working with sort of new mothers and mothers to be. And there's sort of scientific proof of music, and these Kenyaling people perform performances, and the scientific proof of how these sort of heal both perinatal, antenatal, and prenatal sort of people in those areas. So I'm looking at, you can look at culture with health, you can look at culture with agriculture, and not to talk of tourism. We all know sort of the potential that has, you know. So I just thought I quickly reflect on that. I don't know if I have enough time. I know it's only 5 minutes, but if I may also add, in terms of looking at sort of what the and diasporans can contribute to support culture, to appreciate and to support the development of Gambian culture. What would come to mind quickly is sort of, I'll just pick 3 quick ones. Maybe so these ideas of international artistic exchange programs. You know, it's always refreshing to bring people from different backgrounds, allow them to sort of collaborate and develop new work. And diasporans, particularly in the West, they can, those engaged in the arts, and not that, for that matter, they can explore sort of these opportunities. And there are a lot of charitable foundations that can support such initiatives, you know, like whether it's the European Union or Gorsi Institute, Ford Foundation, Alliance Francaise, similar sort of funding streams you can find if you just search for it. So I'm looking at sort of practicalities here, how diasporas can practically support the development of Gambian culture. That's one sort of opportunity and suggestion, really. There's others like, I touched a bit on cultural and heritage tourism. Obviously, there's a massive market out there. We know a lot of sort of Black Americans, Black British, and Black Europeans who really want to discover more about themselves. And this market is still not quite tapped in Gambia. We learned from the experience last year of Ghana Year of Return. It is reported that over 1 million diasporans visited Ghana, and economically it has injected $1.8 billion. So, you know, look at this thing, and the point and the link with diasporans here again is the fact that the Ghanaian diaspora were the people behind that massive success. Obviously, most of them from America, but again, talking about diasporans potential contributions to development of culture. And quickly, last one, maybe at a more local level, we all know that all these Gambian organizations in sort of the big European cities and America, we continue to hold annual events. These events are now very big. I know all these sort of organizations have their challenges. We have financial challenges. We face with a lot of stringent immigration red tape, not to talk of the sort of stress level, but it is still a window. It is a good opportunity to help, involve or engage sort of local Gambian artists and give them this international exposure and sort of a big stage experience. So these are 3 quick things. And like I say, the reflection on the relevance to move culture from the margins to the heart of everything we do. I think I can stop there. But before we go in, I might as well just mention that we have wonderful, and this we have to, I have to mention the young Gambian sort of British who won BBC Sound of 2021, Paz Saliu. I mean, again, we're talking of culture and diaspora. So you can see the link. If Paz Saliu, and for that matter, there's another Gambian by the name Jehus. These are big young artists of Gambian heritage. And all this you can link to how they can be seen. I mean, obviously they are British as well, but they can represent Gambia in the wider scheme of things. So let me stop there for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jock. I think it's very, very important that there's need to move culture from the margins, and also the relevance and the importance of economic contribution of culture in national development, and also the diaspora's contribution to the promotion and development of Gambian culture, and especially, and also Gambian economy, and moving from brain drain to brain gain. So for them to be useful, yes, you can be in the diaspora, but also being useful to the Gambia, being useful to your people by supporting the artists through activities out there, giving them opportunities, but also contributing here back home. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, if now that was the first segment of this session, we now you've heard from the keynote speakers. You've also heard from discussants. I think since this is we don't want it to be a one-way traffic, we want you also to really take the floor and share your views, your comments, and to do so, you just need to go to the chat box or click the raise hand button if you want to speak, and we will take 3 to 4 questions and comments from you, from the different participants. We'll give you what maximum 2 minutes each. And then also we allow the the keynote speakers or the discussant, depending on how they feel it, the way the questions were addressed, and they will be able to respond to those. Also take 2 minutes to respond to your comments or suggestions. Yes. Is it
the first question we have is Mr. Jibril Ngom.
Oh,
Mr.
okay.
Jibril Ngom, you can put your mic on and your video.
Over to you, Jibril.
Yeah, thank you.
Jibril, your mic is mute.
Am I there?
Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hello to every one of you, and thank you so much for the brilliant speakers who have already speak. My English are not so much intact, but actually I would try my level
Don't worry, it's the idea. We want to get your ideas. Don't worry.
Yeah,
fire away.
I will commend all of you actually for the brilliant speakers, especially my sister, my colleague, Sona Jobate, you know, she said it all. Actually, she actually emptied my brain. And actually, I will question you people about how often will you do this kind of meetings, you know, actually, because it's a big opportunity for me to be part of it and listening to you, brilliant people, you know, and how can we have contacts with the musicians who are in the diaspora here? How can we have contacts with experts like you people? Actually, I know some of you people, especially the Nene, Ndei and Malik, Njok and Co. Actually, I met Sona once in Oslo. She was playing here. But actually, experts like you, we will like to have contacts with you if it is possible. Sometimes when we are eager to ask some questions related to culture or to how can we proceed, you know, our opportunities, because actually I'm from the Griot family. Actually, Malik Njog, Nene Bojang and Co know me very well. I'm doing my best to promote the culture since I was in the diaspora 24 years ago. And I have been working with Nene, Malik and Co. And I will thank them for their supports to us. I have been to London for quite times, and Nene, just recently we have in a project with IAC, you know, and I really appreciate them. And they have launched a project with me, Ndei and Nene, on behalf of the Gambia House. Actually, we are not well educated. The musicians who are in the diaspora, actually, we are well talented, but to get into the system, you know, I don't know if you people can understand me, to get into the system.
Very well.
Yeah,
They will
have people
respond
who
to you
might
after.
help us to write and do the expertise work, you know, and it's what Nene and they was doing for us, you know, recently. And I'm so proud of what I achieved on behalf of them, the whole of Gambia House, you know. I'm so proud of Njok Malik too, you know, with his hard work he have been doing for so many years, you know. Actually, we are stars in our culture and what we can do, but obviously we need help of, you know, the promoters and the people who are well educated to support us in that field. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jibril. They later on they will give you a response. And before I give the floor to somebody, I want to acknowledge what you just said, Nene and they, you know, for Gambia House. I remember when I came to Norway, they treated us, myself and the delegation, they treated us like kings. So, they really. Very good Gambian citizens out there. Yes, next.
Next is Modu Lamin Jajusi. Modu Lamin Jajusi, you can put your mic on and your video on.
Modu Lamin?
Thank you very much. However, I'll just have to slightly turn my computer. Thank you very much for inviting us once again. As the host rightly mentioned, Mr. Malik, my name is Mudlamin Jajusi, but I am not here today as an individual. I am here as a university student representing the whole of the university. And of course, the 19th Executive Council of the University of the Gambia. We are very, very happy and glad indeed to be participants of this very important forum and discussion. To the panelists, to the host, to Sona, to Dr. Per Gomez, to Mr. Jibril, to Ngom, to Amisheri, Auntie Ami. We miss you so much, and we want to say thank you very much for inviting us. However, we have to just reinstate the point that has been mentioned, or the various points that have been mentioned in the aspect of culture. within the Gambian society. Of course, it is actually very important if you have to mentor it or measure it down to the dimension of university students. Today in our capacity, we are here as English language students, as history students, as government students, as geography, chemistry, political science, and development studies students. And we are saying that in the whole area of history, in the whole area of culture, in the whole area of the diaspora, being active in the Gambia's national development is of huge value and importance. But then what we want to make sure is that in the aspect of research and publication for the University of the Gambia and for university students, we want to beg at least or call on all stakeholders, Dr. Cherno Bari, call on Sona Jobati, call on a lot of other people who are present here, important stakeholders, Mr. Hasum Sisi, that help us in making sure that our research that we are doing in aspect to culture and tradition in the Gambia, maintaining a lot of values and cultures within the Gambia, help us so we can have at least something that we can call ours as University of the Gambia students. I would say right here that it gets very difficult whenever we go outside. We'll do our very good publications and writings, but then it's always difficult to have somebody to help us take it to the next stage. That I believe if this is something that everybody want to put at least one or two things into, it is going to be of great value and important. Dr. Pierre Gomez, you always tell us this in class, and of course in all your social gatherings, that right now at this stage in time, that we are not future leaders, we are already leaders. And as young people of the University of the Gambia, I would say that a lot of us are here in making sure that we get what we want to do in building a society of value and importance. So we're saying thank you very much. And however, we are sending this request to Ms. Sona Jobate. The University of the Gambia usually have what we call the annual student week. And this is a gathering that brings students from all over the faculty, all over university, in making sure that we participate in activities geared towards national development. We do have what we call a cultural day. We're not only calling to SONA, but to all stakeholders present here. We want you guys to come on and support this student activity, because in a way, it is going to help us maintain a very cultural practice, a very good practice within the university fraternity and even to outside students. We're calling on SONA here today. We will join the program tomorrow too, but we don't know if we will see you. We would use this opportunity to say that we would definitely need you. If you can help us, please come over, perform for us at the cultural day. Let people see you, let the students see you, let them know that we have a Gambian who's doing extremely well in the diaspora. Let the students feel that energy, that vibe, that fulness and willingness to do whatever that we can, wherever we need it. To Mr. Malik, to everybody who's present, and of course, to MSDG. We say a very big thank you, and we hope and pray that tomorrow too will be a very successful event. On behalf of the students of the University of the Gambia, we say thank you very much. We are indeed honored. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lamin Jajusi, and speaking on behalf of the UTG Student Union. And thank you for that vibrancy. Well, you've heard it from the keynote speakers, from the panelists, and it's all about moving from the margins. So as students, you need to move from the margins and take the lead. So that's the call. So if you hear the message, move out and be counted. Yes, I think your message is well noted, and I think they will get back to you later. So any other question again?
Yes, Professor Gomez, we have two other questions. MSDG is pleased to hear from the University of the Gambia students. We've been partnering with the university for 3 years now, so we're pleased that they've been able to join us. The next two speakers are first, Assistant Superintendent of Police Babukar Dumbuya of the Gambia Police Band, and after him we have Miss Tida Saho. So ASP Dumbuya, please put your mic and video on. Thank you.
Are we going to mic first before? ASP Dumbuya? Hello, I salute you, sir. SP Dumia.
Please unmute yourself.
SP Dumia, unmute your mic, please. Maybe we go to Tida once SP Dumia is working on the mic, and we'll come back to him. What do you think? Hello?
No.
Hello? Who is on the line?
No, I can remember. You are the one who replaced as press officer later, Director Tourism.
Hello, Waka, SP Dumbia.
Very bad, very bad.
SP Dumbia.
Very bad.
Hello. The network.
Yes.
Profile.
Yes.
You see, the information is circulated to all traffic officers and other users.
Hello. It seems that SP Dumbia is not getting us. Can we move to Tida and come back to him after?
But notwithstanding that, you know,
profile. Give a file.
Yes, I'm trying to stop ASP Dumbia's line. Just a moment.
Then it seems okay.
Yes. So, Tida Saho, can you please put your mic on and your video?
Hello, Tida. Tida Saho.
Professor, maybe you can go to the panelists and we would try to get
Yes.
Tida and Dumbia again. Thanks.
Okay. Yes, so yes, to the keynote speakers and the discussions, you've heard our brothers and sisters raising different issues earlier on, and especially up to the students. So please take the floor. We start with the keynote speakers and then the discussions. Yes, we start with our sister, so Sona.
Yes, I'm back online. Wow, thank you to the contribution from our questions that just came forward. Really important questions on both sides. I think to the first questioner, sorry, I didn't note the name again, but it's a very valuable point actually that he raised, which is the situation of a lot of very talented artists, and as I call them, cultural ambassadors that are coming from the country, both inside and outside in the diaspora currently, is trying to, you know, make the most or benefit in some way, or even, as we might say, capacity build in some way to build their outreach as much as possible. I do think it's a responsibility of us within the country, or whoever has that platform, to be able to create a something for people to plug into to benefit from. I do see that as something that is very, very important. I would, as I always do say to people when they say that to me, the word uneducated, I really don't like to hear that word coming from anyone who is so culturally richly endowed. so much. So we again have to look at our terminology. There's a lot of scholars who've done a lot of work on that, and I think that's also a very important part of shaping our mentality, the words we choose to use. Just because we have not been educated in the Western sense does not make us uneducated. It makes us amazing ambassadors for a particular area of what we have to offer, and that happens to be, in the case of the speaker that just made a question before, in the musical area. So please, give that platform, that respect, and that status, as far as I'm concerned, where it's due. And I think there are amazing initiatives going on in the Gambia. We've heard so many of them from people who have spoken before this right now on this panel. So I think it's a great opportunity to maximize from the suggestions that have been brought forward in terms of trying to make the most of some of those avenues. There's things that I've heard also that I would like to also follow up on as well. I would also encourage people to reach out to us, to my academy also. If there's anything we can do and we can offer, I'm always, that's what I'm doing. It's what I'm here for. I often say to people, yes, I'm on the stage, but I'm on the stage for a reason. I'm on the stage to spread a message, to say something. Music is a medium for communication. It's not for fame. It's not for money, although we want to pay our bills, yes, but do something with that platform. And for me, it's to spread a message of being able to raise the regard of African culture in general. And yes, of course, I'm standing as a representative of the Gambia, but it is also a bigger platform than that, is African culture at large. And for me, us as performers, people who have that opportunity to communicate with thousands of people who have no idea where you're from, do not even know what the instrument is in your hand sometimes, it's a unique opportunity to be able to say something very important to those people and also to people back at home as well. So really treat that as something that is to be hugely proud of. Those of you who are in the diaspora, who are carrying our traditions and those cultures, to be hugely proud of that, and to use that as an opportunity and a channel to be able to spread a particular message. It's often something that I often question with my students is, what is it that you want to say? It's not just about playing music and dancing and being happy. What message do you want to bring to the table? What is it that you're doing to actually cultivate or give back to where it is that you've come from? To the university students, I just, whenever I hear, young people talking, I always smile, because again, this is why we do what we do. And it's, for me, I can't put into word how refreshing it is to hear young people, young Gambians with the passion. It's something that I want more of, to feel that passion, to feel the urgency as well. As I often say to people, it takes a long time to develop, yes, but I always feel like, but I don't have ages. I want things to happen now. So let's look at constructive ways to make things and implement things now, with a mind to making sure that the sustainability is there for the future. But let's not talk on these, conversations too much. Let's just get going. Let's try to implement things as much as possible. And to those students, yes, the easy answer for me is yes to everything. I'm more than happy to be involved in any way that will encourage and support the students at the university, because it's the next generation. I'm very sad to say that I have to say that already, because I like to feel I'm still young, but I'm seeing the next generation already coming up. So I have to say, no, that's really where I'm looking at. And so anything that I can do or be of service to that, I'm more than happy. So again, please reach out to us. What I will do is I will leave contact details in the thread, so that you can pursue it on that, and the discussion can be taken further. But most importantly, foremost, I just want to say a big message to all those people like you, the students and so on, is, really our hope, our future, my hope and my passion and my future lies in you. So please keep up what you're doing, please.
Thank you very much, Sona, for that positive vibration. I know the students must be very happy for that positive response, and I think they will take it up and engage you. Yes, Profile, can we continue, or you have somebody on the line? If not,
yes. We have Tida Saho again.
Okay, Tida,
over to you.
Tida. Tida. Maybe There's a technical issue there. Maybe we
Okay,
can.
so we try Dumbuya one more time again.
Okay.
Mr. Dumbuya.
Yes, ASP Dumbuya. ASP Dumbuya. Well.
Okay, back to your panel. Then.
Okay, then we continue, and we can come back to them whenever there's the technical hitches are addressed. We maybe now give the floor to Dr. Salah, the academic activist, to respond to some of the issues raised. Dr. Salah? Or your mic, Dr. Salah, your mic is mute. Can you unmute the mic? Okay. Dr. Barre, you could have done it the fuller way.
Okay, is that better?
Is the mic, the MSDG, my Gambia mic is mute, so that's why. Yes, go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Very well, loud and clear.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Gomez. And I think I want to thank you to Sona for answering those questions before. For me, there are 2 points I picked up. One question was, what can be done to restore the originality of pioneers of the Gambian culture? That's a very interesting question. I think we need to see culture and position it as something that is dynamic, that is changing and shifting all the time. And I think if you look at the forces of globalization, in that time and space and distance have been conquered, and possibly you talk about the influence of mobile stateless capital, then you begin to see that culture cannot be stagnant, cannot be standing still. It moves with different influence. So I think we need to factor that in. The second bit is like, in terms of government policy, I think there's a lot that needs to be done. In terms of people taking ownership of the process, there's a lot that needs to be done as well, so that it's not left to the hands of 1 or 2 people to do it, but everybody has a part to play. In publishing books that will preserve Gambian culture and Gambian history, I didn't wait for anybody. I didn't ask for anybody's permission. I did what I felt was necessary. So I think that is quite important, that we see the role that we can play in the system and we do what we can. Our officers are elected, our government is elected, our civil servants are paid to do a particular job, and we hope they do it, and we call them to account if they don't. But in addition to that, I think there must be a role for the voluntary sector. There must be a role for student activists. As the former president of the Gambia Students Union, I know what I'm talking about here. And I think it's very, very important that students as at the forefront, as cultural vanguard, they bear witness, as they argue in the International Student Statement, they bear witness to the suffering of their people. Therefore, they must bear witness to their liberation. And I think there's a big part, not only in terms of asking for favors, but in terms of taking action, taking initiative, raising funds. As a president of the Gambia Students Union, that's what I did. And I hope that Mr. Jajusi and the others, you will keep on doing the same thing, because the students occupy a very central role that can challenge government, that can challenge societal thinking, and that can demonstrate initiative. I think that's really, really important. In terms of research publication, like I said before, we set up the Journal of Critical Southern Studies purposely to promote counter-orthodoxy and Southern perspectives. And I think there's spaces in which, especially the Students' Union and other groups must actually generate avenues and spaces to disrupt and to challenge and to critique and to take action. And I think this needs to be a training ground that needs to be more fertile than possibly it is at the moment, but I stand to be corrected on that. But also, if there are particular capacity needs in relation to, for example, research, in relation to documentation, in relation to publication, there are many stakeholders that you can work in partnership with. What is wrong with the UTG Students Union starting a publication house. There are a lot of us who will support you, who will give you the training, who would support you to make that happen. So I want us to shift in terms of focusing more attention on what we're going to do to change the system, no, in concrete terms, in very, very concrete terms. So, Mr. Judge, I can speak to you like this because I invoke my privilege as an ex-student of GAMSU, ex-student president of GAMSU. But this is, I expect more from the students. I've been a bit out of the game. I'm not sure what is happening, but I just want to see a more vibrant union that is actually infused in every life of the Gambia and every section of the society in terms of being the vanguard of change.
Thank you very much. You've challenged the students to be vanguards of change and make sure that they also question the logic. Well, as university students, they are called to question the logic and so that at the end of the day, they find the answer. Yes, we go to the discussions. Dr. Barry?
Thank you very much, Professor Gomez. I will also, I think, reiterate what Dr. Salah has just mentioned. But then I want to also say that with regards to the question raised by Mr. Jajusi, how would we be able to help? And I appreciate the fact that a former president of the student union is able to give them some hints. Initiating is always difficult. Sustaining that initiation, you know, establishing associations, nurturing them, building on them, and then really looking for funds is not always easy. But I think the initiatives should come in a strong way. In the case of the Writers Association, for example, we've already started a masterclass series. We are hoping to begin the first activity tomorrow. And then we have Dr. Mahmoud Salah, who is going to be proposing a poetry discussion and poetry creative writing tomorrow for few participants. And then from there, we are going to look at other areas, you know, I mean, even the cultural areas, why not? Sometimes music is good. So have some few people to come, have some little music around, some poetry, recitations, etc. So there are some masterclass series that will come. So Professor Gomez and others would be invited to propose a one-day working session, training session, a sort of interactive workshop with some few students or few participants, members of the Writers Association or others. Some of it will be put online, others would be face-to-face. But this is all to also answer to the question of production, quality production of literary expressions, because we've been having challenges finding serious, you know, language problems, particularly, but also in the expressions of diction and style when it comes to writing, where we have seen a lot of people wishing to write poetry, but also prose. So these are some of the small efforts that will come our way. And I joined the panelists who have really been urging us to start revisiting how we can, you know, reshape our culture. It's not about criticizing or rekindling, or it's more about where we were and how do we move on from there. And I appreciate the stance that Sona made. It's not about minimizing the efforts. When you look at music, people see it from a different lenses, but it is a whole life of its own. And this is the whole cultural expression we were talking about. Literary expressions have been emerging, you know, with a lot of productions, but we really need the support of critics, you know, to help in that production. On the last note, I want to express my gratitude in particular to Professor Fall for the invitation, and I'm hoping that with this kind of platform, there is a lot that will come our way, so that we will be promoting and encouraging and questioning some of the issues that are of relevance, not only for Gambia, but for the whole of Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you. SP Dumbia? SP Dumbia? Hello?
Okay, now.
Hello, SP Dumbia? Well, it seems that...
Yes, hello?
Yes, Mr. Dumbia?
Hello?
Yes, you can take the floor and
Hello?
can ask your questions or
Are you getting me?
Your mic is breaking. Your line is breaking rather, so it's difficult to hear you.
Are you receiving me loud and clear?
Yes, okay, just go ahead, we see.
Hello? Over.
Please go ahead.
I am
the mic, your line is breaking, unfortunately. Must be network problem.
Yes, I don't think it's clear enough.
Yes.
Professor Gomez, we do have Ndai Jabate. She's available to read out some of the questions that were typed into the chat box.
That's my sister, Nay. Nay, good to hear from you. Over to you.
Yeah, good to hear from you. Thank you so much, and thank you everybody. I'm so inspired and motivated to continue. I call myself an accidental artist, finding myself writing about publishing books of Gambian stories and folktale due to my daughter who couldn't find it in Norway. We look around, couldn't find books for African kids in terms of stories, and then that's how I got myself publishing books, and she really made sure that I start publishing. But just to go back and read the questions, we have questions from the University of the Gambia Student Union. They are saying that the African culture has been replaced by the Western culture. What can be done to restore the originality and pureness of the Gambian culture? Question number 2 is, what is your suggestion to the suggestion that culture and heritage should be inculcated in the Gambian schools curriculum?
Okay. Those are the 2 questions?
Those are the 2 questions from the university. The rest of it, they're just repeating the same question, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. That's good. Maybe that would be a good transition for us to give the floor to Hasum to respond to those questions. And then we'll come back to you, Ndai, if you have other questions from the participants.
Yes.
Hasum? Is Hasum around? Well, if Hasum is not around, we allow Njok to at least respond to one of the questions, and also Dr. Sala, because we talk about the academic aspect of it there.
Professor Gomez, we also have Professor Bala Saho on.
Oh,
and
okay.
he would,
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Okay. I thought that was after this we will get both Abdul Karim Wagan and Bala, but it will be good also. Prof. Bala Saho worked as director of NCAC before moving on to the US, and where he's now a professor. Prof. Saho?
On mute. Can you hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear.
Oh, wonderful.
Bonjour.
Thank you, my brother.
You're welcome.
It's been a while.
Exactly.
How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Wonderful.
You've heard the students, not so? And
Yes.
the questions are read by our sister Nay. And,
Right.
exactly. Take the floor, my brother.
First of all, I really want to thank Dr. Jibril Fall for bringing me into this. And I really think this is a great initiative and timely, considering the state of our cultural industry or the position of culture these days in our country. The presentations are inspiring, and particularly, hands up to Sona, Kumba, and Ami, for all the wonderful things they have said, and all the presenters, particularly to all my brothers, Cherno, and of course, Hasum. But really, I just want to make 1 or 2 points. And the first one is, I don't know. I mean, I hope somebody here will correct me though. But the Mandinkas, they have this saying, they say that kulumbula lalube ngania killing. I don't know who will help me translate that. But, I think it simply means that we are all in the, right? We all get into the ferry or into the boat, sort of to cross the river, right? I mean, have I translated that well? But meaning that our desire really is to safely cross the river to get to the other side. Even though I cannot speak Fulani, but I think Fulas also have another proverb that I think is an addendum to what the Mandinkas have said, right? And Charno, please help me here. But I think the Fulas also said that taro lumbata mayo, right? If I understand right, that means that going round and roundabout will not make you cross the river. The reason why I bring this out, for me, the essence of these examples are that even though our desire is to safely cross the river, or our desire is to safely sort of achieve our purposes, I think there is a need for us to step aside and think about culture more deeply, right? Sort of more deeply and sort of more seriously, right? So we can ask ourselves certain questions. Do we have all the necessary tools or the skills sort of to teach particularly and to study culture more seriously, right? And I think there is another example. For example, even if you think about the NCAC that Hasum spoke about, right? If you look at the depositories or the archives of the NCAC, if you look at all the collections that has been done in the early 60s and 70s and 80s, they are far more superior to the ones that have been collected in the late 90s and quite recently. Because during that time, most of the works that were done, I mean, the Gambian, Sidibe, and others were held by all these sort of British and American scholars, PhD scholars who came to Gambia to do research. In a sense, they helped, to make the archives grow and collect really good materials, because I think they have at least some knowledge, not to interpret, but at least to ask very good questions from people, so that they can collect enough and good materials. So what I'm saying here is that, particularly what the students ask, why can't, for example, our government, invest at least something in culture? Because if you look at the NCAC, but it's only Hasum right now who has a master's degree. If he leaves now, NCAC is dead. Our culture is, our depositories are almost dead. Or even if you look at the Ministry of Culture itself, I mean, how many people really are there who have a higher degree? People who can seriously interpret our culture for us. because remember, culture is not just about, all the things that we talked about, about the songs, about the products. Those are manifestations, right? Like singing is a manifestation of culture, like the cultural products. Those are all manifestations of culture. So culture is really how, I don't know how to say this, but something like, culture is about what we do, right? It's not, it's what we do and how we want and how we do it, if that makes sense, right? How we do it. For example, how do we cross the river, right? Do we have enough paddle? Do we have enough gas? Do we have a boat that will, that is good enough to carry all of us across the river, right? And I think those are really good questions to ask. I mean, the other thing is really, so if government invest in this, they can, they can go to the university, like particularly these smart and intelligent students who have just spoken here, right? Why can't government, for example, I mean, deliberately pay for 1 or 2 students, right, to go and study and, and get a degree and, in the arts, in the arts, that's what I'm saying. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think that would be a very good thing to sort of get out of these things. The other thing really is that, are we, and I think that will really help us. For example, are we really knowledgeable enough about the cultural and educational basis of past and current ways of our existential strategies, or simply our historical trajectory through the lens of culture? Do we really understand this? And how can we understand this? I think are important questions, right? For example, how does culture really impede, or how does culture inform, or how does culture motivate the development aspirations of our people? I think those are things that maybe we can sort of think about a little bit more deeply, or even how can we utilize the enabling capacity of culture to understand the principles sort of that are at work in any self-sustained environment. For example, not only to better preserve the past, but also how to wisely use it. I think that's and this has been said, by many of the presenters already, and I think these are really, really good points. Another important thing is, how do we apply this cultural knowledge so that the development can go forward? And I think it must be Cherno who mentioned about this Sanawia and all these kinds of things. But I think these are really, really very good resources that can help us forge sort of a really sort of tangible way for our country, particularly with all what is going on. And I also want to say just a word or two about what I think Isona said about sort of this marginalization of culture, which is really true, particularly if we consider the development. I think Hassan talked about this, but if we think about the development of culture since from independence up to now, I mean, I will a little bit disagree that not much has been done about this, right? I mean, I think we can all compare the cultural, the Ministry of Culture or the Department of Culture to other departments, right? For example, how many people have a, degree or PhDs in education, right? At the Ministry of Education. How many people have, degrees in the Ministry of Agriculture, right? I mean, and various departments, but how many, really? Are we serious about culture? Or really, let's go there and look at these things ourselves. So I think what MSDG is doing, this is excellent. I think this is a very good starting point. This is a platform where we can talk about this, but also I think this is an opportunity also for us to think about it and find ways of how we can, maybe advise the government or come up with ways of where, at least particularly the youths, and I said this again, I mean, I met some really intelligent and very smart students at the UTG, and I think really something has to be done about this, right? At individual level, I mean, lots of people are doing different things in trying to help, but I think that we need to have a strategy in place. Can I shut my mouth so that I don't go too long?
Thank you very much, Prof. Barasaho, for that overview, those analysis. I think is well noted. Yes, if maybe we can have Njok. Is Khadija gone? We have Njok, and we must have lost Hasum. Njok Malik?
Yeah, hello again, Dr.
Yes.
Comments. Yeah. Is it, well, I think the question was, what can be done to restore originality and pureness of Gambian culture? And what is your suggestion to the suggestion that culture and heritage should be inculcated in the curriculum? If I take the second part of the question first, I started when I was in support of Sona's original point that we need to move culture from the margins to the center. I said that cultural education is really important, and obviously one would expect that to be from the people, school children, and even the sort of arts and craft that you give to children. It's sort of their imagination, their thinking. It just develops this, and this helps children as they grow. That's why you see here, well, because I am sort of active here in UK with the arts and all that, but I can see that this is sort of a real sort of major component in all schools. They want to ensure there's cultural education, and from not only from year one, even from nursery, So at that point, I couldn't agree more. See, it needs to be back. I remember when I was going to school in Gambia, that was months ago, primary school at Albion, we used to have some cultural distinct. I used to be part of a choir at Albion School. So I think, if it is not part of the curriculum now, then, it has to be restored. It has to be there, definitely. So, yeah, I cannot belabor that point. I'm talking about pure Gambian culture. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, history has proven that Ifang Bonde has done it. They've left their pop sort of music and they introduced Afro-Manding, and it worked. But then again, we live in a very dynamic world. Things change. I'm not sure whether we can do that again. I'm not sure whether you can even be brave enough to try to do something like that and expect it to work. The world is changing, and we live more sort of a global village now, that the influence of sort of Western culture is so impactful that you cannot just expect to go back and do sort of original Gambian stuff and expect it to work. I don't know, I may be wrong, but I mean, I just think it's best to be evolving with times and adjusting. I can agree with the point that maybe any sort of music genre that you are active on, you would want to see your culture in it, whether you are even doing urban music or pure sort of rapping and all that. It's good to get your sort of African or Gambian sort of authenticity in it. Yes, but to have pure authenticity, I'm not too sure. Yeah, so I just thought I just chip in.
Okay. That. Well, thank you very much, George. Maybe at this stage, maybe we can play a video with that of Wagan. Prof. Profile.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Abdul Karim Wagan.
Yes, Mamos Media will play it now. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So please relax and enjoy this video. And from Abdul Karim Wagan Fai.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Abdul Karim Wagan Fai. Culture has to be highly appreciated. It speaks a lot about our people. It shows everything about us. From one's culture, you can tell practically everything about that group of people. And Gambian culture, I'll speak more on the artistic and musical appreciation of it, dating back, of course, to maybe traditional and folk culture, going to the 60s with the advent of the Super Eagles, likewise other groups transforming to eventually Ifan Bondi, Gelewar, and all of those. They spoke a lot about, I wouldn't only say Gambian, but they spoke a lot about Senegambian culture. But that also eventually transformed. Some of the socio-political things that happened within sub-region and in particular the Gambia also caused a lot of breaks in some of these artistic cultural things from the 70s and particularly 80s going to 81. And things started picking back up in the mid to later 80s to eventually what became the modern, more hip-hop and reggae influenced part of our culture and music in particular, with the coming of Fugitives and so many other guys of that era, to eventually the 2000s. You had also that influence where it I think became more apparent. Early 2000s, you had the Born Africans and guys like Rebellion, to eventually leading to what I would call my generation. My generation, not necessarily in age, but my generation more with the guys that we came up with. I think with all of those as well, we always have to look back. You always have to look back at what previously was and how you can connect what previously was to what is to eventually go into the future. I think we've definitely grown a lot, but what I personally think could be the way forward, I'm not sure if Gambia is even appreciating that part of our culture and music so much. We are trying to nurture what is already available outside, but I think I might have to use examples, but using guys like the Jelly Madis, Barhama, Cham, Royal Messenger, guys like Bobo Dima, Sambu Suso. I think those are people artistically we could nurture to eventually be a way forward for Gambian culture as well. With guys like that, I think the world would definitely appreciate, because they showcase a lot about our tradition and our culture, but it's also very modern and can be appreciated by the world. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Abdul Karim Wagan Fai. Culture has to be highly appreciated. It speaks a lot about our people. It shows everything about us from.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. We've heard from the different participants, and also Prof. Saho did give us his views on the issue, and now with this last video, And I think later it will be shared for everybody to look at. Yes, I want to be guided now, Prof. Here should we now, because we are now reaching the tail end now. What next?
We do have question from Inspector Dumbaya. Who
Good.
couldn't connect. He sent a question. I don't know.
Oh, yes, Nay, please go ahead.
Yes, he said that why can't the diasporans and philanthropists emulate Professor Jibril Fall and music promoter Njok Malik Jeng in taking the police ban to higher heights? Human resource is not a problem to the police ban, but what the police ban needs is to build its members' capacity, exposure to overseas performance and good musical equipment. Meanwhile, we thank Mr. Malik Jeng for giving the police ban a year all round of free internet.
Wow. Well, thank you very much, Malik, for that opportunity. And I think attended a program where Dr. Barry was saying that he really enjoyed the police ban and so on. And yes, what can we do? It's not only the diaspora, but all of us, what can we do to support our police, especially the police ban in their activities, and either here or in the diaspora especially? Okay, that's what, that's the question. And do you have another question, maybe before we allow our panelists to respond?
Yes, there is one question that says, somebody from Zoom user, the name is not there. Do we have a national troop?
Well, the IFASUM is not.
No, not yet. No, we don't have.
So
yes,
as Prof. Balasaho, the former DG, he knows it to his fingertips.
Right.
Yeah?
Not yet.
Right?
I think they are still struggling to. They're still trying to figure it out. Yeah, every year we talked about it, but it's still in the pipeline.
Yeah. Well, I hope one day it will come out.
I think it will be a very good thing, though.
Yes, Day? Do you have another one, Day?
No, the rest are just statements.
Okay. Or profile?
Perhaps you can go back to your keynote speakers for them to give us their concluding remarks.
Okay, yeah. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, if we don't have any other question and comment, we now give the floor to
I have one question though, sorry.
Please.
Yeah, to you.
Go ahead.
Okay. Is there any possibility for a collaboration between, say, the NCAC and the UTG? Because I think that the depository has quite a lot of interesting materials that your students can use, for research. Instead of, say, it will save them some resources. Instead of going to the field and do some research, they can just go to NCAC and do their projects. So is there anything that can be done where, for example, even some of the professors who are teaching there, like people with, can go and help the NCAC, particularly I think there are all these, materials there on lullaby songs, on tradition, lots of materials that I think that your students can use. Is that a possibility?
Yes, we have activities that we normally do with NCAC some extent, and the Hasum is an adjunct lecturer. For the past years, he's been teaching in our history department. Currently, this semester, he's also teaching. So we have activities, and also our students do research using the the materials most of the time from NCAC and the National Archives, especially our masters in African history. So in fact, it's mandatory as per the course, especially the Professor Ansar is there, so they always have to go there to their archive. What we have not done is to now go out of our comfort zone into the classrooms to go and fix some of the issues at NCAC. We haven't done that, but maybe that's also an issue that we can work on, especially now with our new director of research and consultancy. We were able to do something with HASM. The HASM is very, very active and generous with us, and just recently took part in our grant research grant allocation. So it's also part of the panelists for the evaluation of the grants that we'll be distributing $16 million on research to given to lecturers. So he was part of so we are doing some activities together, but at macro level, we are yet to go that far. But these are things that we can do in the long run. Yeah. Bala?
Great. Yeah, I say great. Oh, very good.
Okay, thank you.
Good, yeah.
Okay, so on that note, we go back to our speakers to give their closing remarks. And that is, we start, let me start with the SONA. And then we'll have Dr. Sala. So Sona Jawate. And I would, is it possible to at least also, since we are talking about music, I know maybe your guitar, your kora is far from you, but anything that is music, it will be really nice if we are to conclude with that note, but do as you feel.
Yeah, they are not with me, unfortunately, where I am right now. But I know I heard something playing at the beginning. I recognize that was me there at the start. So yeah, I appreciate the support. I appreciate that. Yes, I mean, I think that a lot has been said. I think it's really interesting hearing the conversation going around, and it's very encouraging hearing that. As actually Khadija said earlier, that it's like everyone is on the same page, which I think is really encouraging to hear, and to recognize that there's definitely. I think someone always said to me, it's strength in numbers, and I believe that very much so. Even with the initiatives that I'm working on, at some point, it is the strength in joining hands with other institutions and organizations, individuals who are doing the same work on the ground. And as was mentioned before, it's very much a matter of making sure that we do make that difference. We make those hardcore differences and changes within society. And I think as well, we all do have that power and the platform in different ways to make those changes and to go for it. It's something that I've very much based everything that I do, which is basically getting started, going for it. When I first opened the academy, I had nothing. I could spend I could have waited for funding, waited for planning, and all the rest of it. But again, the changes that need to be made, the lives being lived, as far as I'm concerned, for young people are happening every year. Is a long time to pass without contributing something and making a difference. So I started under a tree with nothing, but I go by the principle, it's the content and the quality of what you do and not what you have to do those things. And it's something that I found a little frustrating in some of the context that I was in touch with at the time, where there was funding going into certain things, there was nice facilities or whatever, and yet the quality, the content of what was taking place within those facilities was still very, very much not at the level that it should be. And so this, for me, was trying to look at how do we do something the other way around? How do we focus on what it is that we deliver and worry about the framework and the shell afterwards. And so that's pretty much how I've based the academy that I'm working on. It's very much focusing on the content and what it is and the difference that we're making to those children's lives. Children who come from very, very diverse backgrounds. As we know, Gambia has a lot of different people. We have so much cultural diversity, linguistic, identity differences, and also differences in economic backgrounds. And it's very important that we are able to represent a segment of the entire Gambian society, whether you're from the town or the rural societies. And for that reason, this academy for me brings those people together and to demonstrate it actually doesn't matter what background you come from. I've had kids coming to the school at the age of 13 who still don't know how to hold a pen. But let's see what difference we can make within a year. And mostly let's start to build that sense of cultural pride and identity within students from a very young age, because that sets the platform for the rest of their life. No matter what it is they go to do in life, that very much sets the background on the platform. And that, I think, is what culture is about, is it's not something tangible that we can touch, that we can mold or shape. It is literally the fabric of everything that we do and the conduct and how we choose to go about everything. And that is what I'm demonstrating to not just the students, but also to those people who are looking in and observing to see what difference do you make to these young people's lives. So for me, it's been definitely a pleasure to be on board this panel. A big thank you to everybody involved, especially the panelists. It's been really inspiring listening to you. And yeah, all in all, thank you so much. And I really hope that this is not the end, but also the beginning as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Sona. And Dr. Salah? Dr. Salah still connected?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me, yeah?
Yes, loud and clear, Dr. Salah.
Okay. Now I said I want to echo Sohna's words because she's actually captured the essence of that self-reliance I've been talking about. I started a publishing house with nothing, with no funding from anybody. I taught myself how to publish, and I was determined. And still now we publish. Right now, I think in the Gambia, Global Hands Publishing publishes the best quality books. We're not only printing, we're talking about editing, proofreading, typesetting, graphic design, and the whole thing. And we've got quality assurance systems in place where our books will be proofread by at least 3 people before they could get anywhere. And there's a proposal system. We started it in addition to my full-time job. So this was something that I just did on the side with nothing. So I'm just thinking that if the will is there, we built the Mandua Development Hub now with nothing. We never had funding from anybody. And this is the point, that we cannot wait for anybody to come and do it for us. If people come and join us, that's fine, but they will respect what we're doing because we have dignity in what we do and we have dignity in ourselves. And I think that is quite important. If people want to come and support what I do, they're free to. If they don't want to support what I do, it doesn't stop me from doing what I need to do. Like they say, Watu TJ. There's so many pressing issues that are affecting the country and Africa. And sometimes you just want to cry. And there's some basic things that we can do for ourselves. We've got 12 hours of sunlight in the Gambia. And when you ask people, oh, we're importing 25% of budget or something like that, spending it on fuel, we can actually build the electric cars that can actually run. Very easy. It doesn't take, there's so much knowledge available. All I'm saying is there needs to be a shift in the mindset, is that we collaborate with people. We don't have to replicate what other people are doing, but we have to start and we roll our sleeves and we do what needs to be done. If other people come and find us, great. If they don't want to find us, we'll still do our thing. The thing about quality is also quite important, because when I looked at some of the books that were being published in the Gambia, the quality was abysmal. There were so many errors in some of the books. The cover design was so poorly done. The graphics were so poorly done, the pixels. And I just said, whatever we publish, it must be of the highest quality. And yes, we've made mistakes, but we've learned along the way. But we insisted on quality. And with our programs, whatever we do, we have to insist on quality. And I think Sona made that point earlier again. If the quality is good, people will be attracted to it. And I think it's very, very important that we learn our craft. We learn our craft. We study from those who know. we are willing to make the mistakes and we learn. So focusing on quality in terms of the students ask about what can be done in the schools. I think whatever we do in the schools, whatever we do with the curriculum, it has to be something, and I think Professor Sahau talked about getting NCAC to work with others. I think it is really, really important that, when we do things, we bring in the right people and we seek knowledge and we go and study. And I think the mistake I see is like a lot of people just want to get up tomorrow and just do something. They haven't thought about it properly. They don't have the skills. They haven't gone to learn their craft. So I think it's really important that people focus on quality. And if you're talking about bringing the university and bringing the classroom into the university and taking the classroom into the real world, there's a symbiotic relationship there that can be tapped. And I think that's also quite important. The key bit, again, is about social entrepreneurship. We cannot keep on giving our time, our energy, without any remuneration. Yes, I think I'm lucky that my job has paid my bills and I'm able to indulge myself in all my fantasies about development. But not everybody's in that fortunate situation. And even if you do it for a long time, it has an impact on yourself, on your family, on your health, and and your motivation even. So we need to think about how some of these ventures must move away from a charity-based model, and what in the charity world is called imaging pornography, and move more towards actually putting it and building it on sound footing. I was running Global Hands Publishing for a while, but I'm getting old, my bones are getting tired, and now we're going to set it up in the Gambia and pass it on probably to people who have got the time and the energy to carry it on. I'm saying that this must make profit and be able to generate daily bread for those people who are coming in as well. And I think it's very, very important that, as we move forward, as we lead this cultural revolution, as we're thinking about how globalization impacts us, because globalization also gives us an opportunity to do things in a different way and to engage in reverse innovation, in that some mistakes have already been made that we don't need to make. So, but I think it's really important about self-reliance, about quality, and also about social entrepreneurship. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sala, and thank you very much, Sona Jobate, and thank you all the discussants, Dr. Chernobari, Hasum Sise, Njok Malik Jeng, and Khadija George Sise. We're very, very grateful on behalf of the organizers, MSDG project, and want to thank Nene Bojang, and my sister Ndei also for the support earlier on, and obviously our sisters, Ami Sheri and Kumba Kuyate, for those melodious voices, and special thanks to Professor Fall and the entire team of the MSDG project. We, on behalf of the University of the Gambia, we are very, very proud to collaborate with you. And you've heard the students. I think they're all ready to work with your team and the rest, and to make sure that we promote our culture, we revive and reposition ourselves. And there cannot be any sustainable development if it is not culturally grounded. And that's our belief. And we hope that we will question the logic. We will continue reclaiming the mantle, and so that what used to happen negatively to some extent through education, through culture, we now change that trajectory. And the work, the sacrifice that you've done, we've heard you. And the world, the rest, the Gambian people will also see how we will be working with your team to make sure that the cultural agenda of this country, the academic agenda of this country is clearly harnessed. And very soon, also UTG together with your organization will be doing something, and I want to believe that it will be good. It will be for the good of the entire nation. And we want to thank you for the service that you are doing, and together with the entire team, because this is the time for Gambians to come forward and contribute their quota. This is a time where people need to be useful to their society. It's good to challenge, to question, to criticize, but it's also better to participate in that building, in that construction, so that we move this nation up to the mountaintop. And I feel that most of you are contributing your quota. We've been following different activities. Wherever you are, a Gambian must be useful to his society. Yeah, so being in the diaspora should not stop people to really contribute. And that's through this medium, education, like Frederick Douglass would say, education is the road to freedom. And this is an opportunity where young ones and academics, professionals, all come together around the table of academic brotherhood and cultural brotherhood to really develop this nation. And this is this exercise, I think, is very, very good. And the program, the fact that the first day started with culture, so it means everything must be supported through culture, because that's the foundation. So tomorrow, when there will be the economic aspect of it, and that will lead to the political dimension with the electoral aspect of it, and so on and so forth, then we would have understood that whatever we do must be culturally rooted. And since it is culturally rooted, it is sustainable. So I think it is. I think we've gone past the time, and I would want to stop here. And thank you very much for this initiative once again. And it was a pleasure for me working with you. Over to you, Profile.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Professor Gomez. I'll just hand over to Nene Boja for her to close the session. Nene.
Thank you very much, Jibril. Thank you, Professor Pierre Gomez. On behalf of the MSDG audience and participants, we want to thank Professor Gomez and the brilliant cast of keynote speakers and discussants. Thank you, Njok Malik and your crew. Thanks to everyone for making SNF4 Day 1 memorable. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Good evening and good night.
Thank you.